But to start out, having a fearful view of freedom. This is a phrase that a Republican-appointed judge used to describe Donald Trump the other day. Nebraska mom Jamie Bonkowitz filmed her interaction with Secret Service agents. They knocked on her door because of a tweet. She had tweeted that she wanted to see justice. Meanwhile, the Justice Department is going after multiple Democratic members of the House and Senate, the governors of 2 states and the mayor of Minneapolis, and any Republican who speaks out against Trump or his lickspittles. Jerome Powell, Lisa Cook, Mark Kelly, Alyssa Slotkin, Jason Crow, Chris DeLuzio, Maggie Goodlander, Chrissy Houlihan, Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, Chris Christie, Jack Smith, Christopher Krebs, James Comey, Letitia James, John Bolton, Tim Walz, Jacob Fry, Miles Taylor, all being investigated or prosecuted by Donald Trump. Are we really losing our fundamental freedoms under Trump? In the article, I tell this story about back in 1994. I wrote a book on attention deficit disorder, and it's still available. It was quite the bestseller because it hit the front cover of Time magazine in June of that year. And I got invitations from literally all over the world to come and speak, and one of them was from a parents group in Singapore. And so I flew to Singapore. They put me up in a fancy hotel. I gave my speech on attention deficit disorder and reforming public schools. And one of them stood up and said, well, how do you suggest we go about reforming our schools? And my answer was, get politically active. Talk to your politicians. They're the ones who approve your budgets and things. So get out there and get active. And the room just went silent. And I'd never had that kind of a response before, It's just absolute silence, like shocked silence. And I kind of filed it away going, I wonder what this is about. That night I got to my hotel room in Singapore, and my hotel room had been ripped apart. The bed was off the frame, my suitcase was emptied all over the floor, my toiletry kit was all over the bathroom floor, all the drawers were opened. So I called the manager, or I called down to the desk, and the manager came up and he looked around and he said, oh, I'm sorry about this. I said, what happened? And he said, the police came today and inspected your room. He said, you must have said something or done something suspicious. That's the kind of country that America doesn't want to become. And that's the kind of country that Donald Trump is turning us into. We are not Singapore yet. We're not Russia, where, holding a blank sign in the street gets you thrown in prison yet. We're not Hungary. We're facing, putting a Facebook post gets Viktor Orban's police to throw you in jail yet. But we're sure as hell moving in that direction. Retired Professor Barbara Wine stood outside Stephen Miller's home passing out "No Nazis in North Virginia" flyers with his picture and the slogan "Wanted for Crimes Against Humanity." 3 weeks later, she was visited by agents of the FBI, the Secret Service, and a Virginia State police officer who took her phone, and they still haven't returned it. Her lawyer said they were speaking truth to power, and that is really at the core of our Constitution. It's a principle and a right that our country was founded on. But the Trump regime doesn't care about the law or the Constitution. Washington Post reporter Hannah Nathanson reporting on Trump's corruption and reorganization of our government. So the FBI showed up at her home, took her phone, took her laptop, took her sports watch, which tells, basically everywhere she's been. They want to know who her sources are. So they're apparently, looking for the names and locations of federal employees she may have interviewed. The New York Times wrote, this is exceedingly rare, even in investigations of classified disclosures, for federal agents to search a reporter's home. A 1980 law generally bars search warrants for reporters' work materials unless they themselves are suspected of committing a crime. True, but the Trump regime doesn't care about the law. And then you got this, Republican-appointed, Reagan-appointed federal judge in Boston. He's been on the bench for more than 40 years. Excuse me. He said, pardon me. He said, I find it breathtaking that high-level officers of our government, cabinet secretaries, were conspiring to infringe the First Amendment rights of people with such rights here in the United States. He's talking about the cases of these students who were protesting Israel's bombing of Gaza. And, pardon me, He said it's fairly clear that this president believes as an authoritarian that when he speaks, everyone in Article 2 is going to toe the line absolutely. I mean, this is true, right? And then you get Stephen Miller, who posted last night about Minneapolis, quote, local and state police have been ordered to stand down and surrender. Surrender. I mentioned in the article that I spent years doing relief work in the third world. And I've had, government officials offer me bribes. I've seen people killed in front of me. I've seen children starve to death in front of me. I've been in countries where one word against the government and you are dead or in prison. And this is the direction that Donald Trump is taking us. This is the road to third world style governance that our corrupt felon of a president has put America on. I mean, he's justifying the murder of Renee Good in Minneapolis. They're literally not even going to investigate it, the Department of Justice. Instead, they're going to investigate her wife. He set his rabid mobs on judges who don't rule the way he wants. He intimidates reporters. He sues news outlets to shut them up. And now he's threatening to deploy the full force of the federal government to silence dissent, criminalize protest, and punish individual speech that he finds inconvenient. He's destroying our European alliance. His buddy and mentor Vladimir Putin is benefiting. He wrote to the Norwegian Prime Minister, Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8+ wars, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. Right, this is the context in which he's saying he wants to take Greenland. I mean, he's dragging us step by step toward the sort of authoritarian state like the ones I used to work in, where loyalty, is more important than the law and fear crowds out personal freedom. He's overseeing this rapid transition of America into an oligarchy. And the problem with that, as I keep pointing out, is that oligarchy is a transitional form of government. The people rebel against the oligarchs. It inevitably happens. And then one of two things happens. Either the oligarchs lose, like they did with the Confederacy in 1865, or they retreat, the same thing as losing, like they did when FDR just crushed them in 1933 and just go back to making money, or they clamp down with an iron fist, the way that Putin did, the way that Hungary did. And that's, I think, the direction, well, if not, I think, it's obvious, it's the direction we're moving. They own the media, they've captured the courts, they've bought most of Congress thanks to this corrupt Supreme Court decision from, Clarence Thomas, the deciding vote on whether he and any other politician could take bribes after he had been taking bribes for years. I mean, this isn't alarmism, this is a historical pattern. Oligarchies either collapse or they become tyrannies. There's no third option. So the real question is, are we going to stop this before we become Russia or Hungary? Because at that point, it's too late. We've got to stop this now. We'll be right back. Today's book in our book club is The Hidden History of the War on Voting, Who Stole Your Vote and How to Get It Back, by this guy, Thom Hartmann. This is from chapter 1, or from the introduction, actually. In 2016, 6% of Americans who were eligible to vote nominated Donald Trump as the GOP's presidential candidate. It was 8% for Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side. Trump went on to be elected president by 26% of eligible voters. The modern American oligarchs have largely stayed in power using three simple elements: explicit and overt racism, massive disinformation campaigns, and voter suppression. No ideas, no push for better schools, hospitals, airports, roads, or bridges, or reform of our health, energy, or financial systems. No promise of more and better jobs. None of these staples of past presidential campaigns can be found in pretty much any Republican advertising today. Instead, the public Republican message is all about race, or the subset of race, religion. Muslim stands in for brown Arab in GOP speak, and immigration, aka brown people from south of our border, and socialism. Meanwhile, Republican secretaries of state across the nation are vigorously purging voters from the rolls. Over 17 million, more than 10% of America's active voters, in just the 2016-2018 period, according to NBC News. After the, after the 5 Republican appointees on the U.S. Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, 14 GOP-controlled states moved within a year, some within days, to restrict access to the vote, particularly for communities of color, students, and retired people. In North Carolina, for example, 158 polling places were permanently closed in the 40 counties with the most African-American voters just before the 2016 election, leading to a 16% decline in African-American early voting in that state. An MIT study found that nationwide, Hispanic voters wait 150% longer in line than white voters, and black voters can expect to wait 200% longer in line to vote. In Indiana, then Governor Mike Pence's new rigorous voter ID law caused an 11.5% drop in African-American voting. Students are suing for their right to vote, and retired people who no longer drive but care passionately about their Social Security and Medicare are being turned away at the polls by the hundreds of thousands because their driver's licenses have expired. The obvious failure of 40-plus years of Reaganomics and GOP policies to maintain a functional middle class in America has been a problem for the modern GOP. In 1974, for example, the GOP had outright control of only 7 states. The message, elect us and we'll help the rich people, just didn't generally resonate with American voters. It's the reason why, outside of the fluke elections of 46 and 52, Democrats controlled the House of Representatives outright for 3 generations, from 1933 to 1996, and controlled the Senate for most of that time. Desperate to win the presidency for the GOP in 1968, Richard Nixon went so far as to commit treason by torpedoing a peace deal with President Lyndon Johnson that President Lyndon Johnson had worked out with the North and South Vietnamese. According to Abul Hassan Bani Sadr, then president of Iran, Ronald Reagan did the same thing by cutting a deal with Iran whereby they would hold on to the U.S. embassy hostages until after the 1980 presidential election, torpedoing Jimmy Carter's chances of re-election. But in 2000, the GOP changed tactics. After Reagan was almost busted for his part in Iran-Contra, he testified that he had forgotten about details of the program more than 80 times. His growing Alzheimer's spared him an indictment. They realized that getting busted for treason wasn't worth the risk. They needed a plan B, and it was deliciously simple. If most voters don't like what you're selling, then just don't let them vote. Paul Weyrich promoted this idea back in 1980 when he was campaigning for Reagan after co-founding the Heritage Foundation. And indeed, many Republican luminaries, such as William Rehnquist, who went from serving the GOP by standing in polling places and intimidating Hispanic and Native American voters in the 1960s to becoming Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, rose up through the ranks by participating in Republican-run voter intimidation schemes. Voter suppression became the foundational go-to tactic for the GOP in 2000. Although the GOP attacked Democratic presidential nominee Al Gore with smear and innuendo, ridiculing him for helping write the legislation that created the modern internet, for example, the main thing that got George W. Bush into the White House was voter suppression. His brother, Florida Governor Jeb Bush, and Bush's Secretary of State, Katherine Harris, threw somewhere between 20,000 and 90,000 African-American voters off the rolls. They were able to get the vote close enough. The 5 Republican appointees to the Supreme Court functionally awarded Bush the presidency. The BBC covered this in 2001 in 2 major investigative reports that were seen all over the world, except on any American media. By 2016, the Republican Party had fine-tuned its voter suppression and intimidation systems to the point that they ran like well-oiled machines in nearly 30 states. Between the 2012 and 2016 presidential elections, for example, Ohio had purged more than 2 million voters from its rolls, the vast majority, more than 2 to 1, in heavily African-American and Hispanic counties. The 5 Republican appointees on the Supreme Court ruled in 2017 that they could keep it up. And other states have since adopted their new tactic of caging voters. The book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting, by me.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, top of the Thursday to you. So is Donald Trump trying to crown himself king of the world? Seriously, this is a mind-boggling thing that just came out. I'll tell you all about that. Also, the police state is apparently now here. Trump's boys say they can kick in your front door, knock down the walls in your house, all without a warrant. No judge necessary. Yeah, so much for the Fourth Amendment, this shocking new leak coming out of DHS and ICE. And if you have a Ring doorbell, you are now apparently officially an agent of ICE. I'll tell you about that also in the first hour. In the second hour of our program, we're going to check in with Phil Ittner, our friend, the veteran war correspondent based out of Kyiv, Ukraine. Also, the Trump administration is hunting for defectors to topple another regime by year's end. Can he take a breath before attacking and toppling another country? And crazy alert, Ted Cruz was photographed on a flight out of Texas ahead of a winter storm. Run, Ted, run. By the way, it's just wildly cold here in Portland. It was 28 this morning walking into work. It's been really cold for like 5 days, 6 days, because there's just no cloud cover at all. All the heat is radiating out at night. So get ready, Midwest, and the rest of the country, I guess. And the third hour of our program, Alex Lawson's going to drop by. It looks like DOGE stole and sold or shared your and my Social Security information with a right-wing crank group that apparently is going to use it to try to find out if any of us are illegal voters. Yeah. And could the Epstein scandal still take Trump down? Oh, and Comer Fudd is now openly trying to cover up what appears to be underage sex trafficking out of Mar-a-Lago. It's getting wild. It's just getting downright wild. My op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com is titled, "Is Donald Trump Trying to Crown Himself King of the World?" This is amazing. This came out of a United Nations resolution. It's a resolution 2803. It was passed on 17 November of just a couple months ago. And this is to make effective the Gaza peace plan that they worked out in October of last year between Israel and Hamas. And that resolution says that, the Security Council, welcoming the comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflicts, welcomes the establishment of the Board of Peace as a transitional administration with international legal personality that will set up the framework and coordinate funding for the redevelopment of Gaza, pursuant to the comprehensive plan, blah-de-blah-de-blah. So here's the UN saying, okay, we're going to have peace in Israel, Gaza. So let's set up a board of peace that will kind of oversee this and also will handle the money going to rebuild Gaza. So in response to that, Trump has his lawyers come up with this entirely new private, non-governmental, treaty-based international organization with its own legal personality. It's not a U.S. government agency. It's not a corporation or a standard NGO. It would be called the Board of Peace. The charter for it, the founding document for it, specifies that Donald Trump is its chairman, that he has absolute power over any decisions and he can veto anything. He is the only person who is able to invite or approve new member states, nations, to join the Board of Peace. He's given the sole authority to appoint his own successor, in other words, Don Jr. He can keep the Board of Peace in existence for perpetuity And he can make the entrance fee for permanent members $1 billion each, money that will be controlled by the chairman, which of course is Donald Trump. I mean, this is wild. And the draft charter for this Board of Peace doesn't even mention Gaza. What this is an attempt to create an organization that can compete with the United Nations. Think of it this way. Right now, the UN is telling Putin, you know, you can't beat up on Ukraine anymore, and you can't go after any other countries. Obviously, Putin's ignoring that, but that's what the UN is telling them. Well, if the Board of Peace is put into place, then now you've got an organization, depending on its members, who are the members, and I'll get to that in a second, that could say, you know, the UN says it's wrong, but we say it's just fine. You know, Russia can take Ukraine if it wants, just like the US can take Greenland and China can take Taiwan. And sure enough, the White House has already named the first 4 executive board members to the Board of Peace. That is Steve Witkoff, the billionaire real estate developer who's Trump's buddy, Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, and Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law. Yeah. And, you know, this all goes along with Trump basically saying that he's a dictator. And the countries that have signed up for this thing, Viktor Orban, for example, you know, the dictator of Hungary, said, we have, of course, accepted this honorable invitation. 21 nations. Russia says, yes, we would love to be a member. Just take that $1 billion out of our money that you've frozen, right? The assets, the Russian assets that have been frozen. But the countries so far, and as you're listening to this list, you will probably notice there's not really even one single functioning democracy on this list. You could argue that Israel is, but I think it's getting harder and harder to make that argument. Here's the list. Bahrain, Morocco, Argentina, you know, Milei, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bulgaria, Hungary, Israel, Indonesia, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Pakistan, Paraguay, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the UAE, Uzbekistan, and Mongolia. So this is not like a collection of democracies. This is a collection of oligarchies, autocracies, and countries aligned with Russia. And Trump says, you know, yeah, this is what's going to rule the world now. Jacob Levy is a constitutional expert and history professor. He says this phony Board of Peace is impeachable on its face. It's a personal power project that treats democracy as an inconvenience, the rule of law as optional, and the world as a Trump family inheritance. I mean, Trump would make himself the head of this thing. I mean, we should be as shocked and furious as the leaders of Europe's top democracies who have now said that they will not participate. France, you know, Macron just came out and said, no, you know, count us out. Germany, no, we're not going to have anything to do with this. This is obviously not about democracies. So here we are. Donald Trump wants to be king of the world. Are we going to make him one? Stay tuned. 13 and a half minutes past the hour. I'll be right back with you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Maybe you can talk King Charles into giving him his crown, right? I don't know. And welcome back. Chris in Littleton, Colorado. Hey, Chris, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, good morning, Tom. I just wanted to say Americans only have 2 choices now. Number 1, get active, fight for democracy, protest, support candidates for people and democracy, and vote. Or number 2, do nothing and let America become a fascist state.
Yeah. And let's acknowledge, Chris, that you know, there's a lot of people living in fascist states. You know, I've worked in Russia. I've been to Hungary a number of times. You know, I had lived in China for a month. And, you know, the way people get along, you know, they just keep their heads down. They just don't talk about politics. And, you know, so for many Americans, they won't even notice a difference.
My main point is the majority of the House and Senate can make Trump a lame duck, unable to do anything. The majority of the House and Senate can also impeach Trump for many reasons or disqualify him for Amendment 25. But they are not doing this. Why?
Because the Republicans control the House and Senate right now, and Republicans are completely terrified of Donald Trump. The Republican politicians, you know, these so-called conservative men, these Republicans, they're wimps. They're betas. They're submissive men who want a strong daddy figure.
Yeah, and my main point is the majority of the House and Senate care more about getting big money from big donors and corporations.
Yeah, well,
themselves.
you know, ever since Clarence Thomas was the deciding vote in legalizing the bribery of politicians, the GOP has had their hand out. You're absolutely right. Chris, thank you. Very well said. Sean in Britain, South Dakota. Hey, Sean, what's on your mind today?
Oh, I was reading the Declaration of Independence this morning, and it occurred to me that a lot of the complaints made against the king of that time are very similar to what Donald Trump is doing now, and I think we ought to talk about that more.
Yeah, I do not disagree. Let me these are actual quotes from the Declaration of Independence. These are the complaints against the king. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. In other words, he's ignoring the law. He has obstructed the administration of justice. He has made judges dependent on his will alone. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. And he has excited domestic insurrections amongst us. There you go.
He's also engaged in acts of piracy at sea.
Yeah.
Not against us, but, you know, some of these complaints for the Americas, he is also now expanding worldwide. So,
yeah.
I just think Americans maybe don't know what's in this Declaration of Independence and need to read it more often, and we need to be talking about this.
I agree.
He is absolutely outside the law.
I agree. When Ronald Reagan pulled funding for civics classes nationwide, and we basically, you know, schools stopped having comprehensive civics classes in elementary school, I think it was a big loss. I mean, we've got, you know, a third of Americans who can't name the three branches of government. It's just a sad commentary. Sean, thank you very much for the call. It's, it's 18 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in just 1 minute. Stay with us. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. A lot of people wonder, where did this whole right-wing movement to basically gut our freedoms and end DEI and all this other, where did this all begin? It all started back in 1951 with a book called The Conservative Mind, From Burke to Eliot by Russell Kirk. And he argued that if the middle class ever got too big, you'd see young people and women and racial minorities all get up on their hind feet and start protesting and basically screwing up America. And in the 50s, you know, even Republicans thought he was nuts. But then the 60s happened and all those protests, and suddenly Republicans thought, yeah, he's right. We've got to destroy the middle class, or at least cut it back. And that was Reagan's mandate when he came into office in 1981. There's a whole article about this. You can read all the details. It's titled The GOP's 60-Year Conspiracy to Kill Our Democracy. None dare call it treason, but I will. Over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
I heard a crown hit the marble floor. Didn't come from God, didn't come from law. Came wrapped in peace with a price tag high, signed in gold while the truth walked by. They said it started with a ceasefire pen, but it didn't stop there. It never does, my friend. One chair, one name, one iron hand, drawing borders no vote ever planned. Who made you king of the world tonight? Who gave you the earth and the stars in the sky? No ballots cast, no people heard, just a throne built on $1 billion word. You don't rule me, you don't rule us. You don't get the world because you say you must. They called it peace, but it smelled like fear. Pay your tribute or disappear. No checks, no courts, no final say, just loyalty bought and thrown away. Pass the crown to the chosen son. That's not justice, that's how empires run. We buried kings on this land once before. Now you're knocking on democracy's door. Who made you king of the world tonight? Who bent the law to fit your might? No treaty signed by the common man, just a dynasty written in sleight of hand. You don't rule me.
21 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Now, he definitely wants to. All righty. ICE, this is amazing. The Associated Press now confirming this. Ken Klippenstein, I believe, was the guy who first broke this story. That, well, actually, in fact, it might have come out of Sheldon White House's office. It came out of one of the senators, that a whistleblower inside ICE has released a memo that was signed by the acting president, Todd Lyons, the acting director of ICE, that says that although the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has not historically relied on administrative warrants alone to arrest aliens subject to final orders of removal in their place of residence, the DHS Office of the General Counsel has recently determined that the U.S. Constitution, the Immigration and Nationality Act, and the immigration regulations do not prohibit relying on administrative warrants for this purpose. Now, let me translate that into English. The Fourth Amendment to the United States says that before you can kick in somebody's door, you have to have a warrant signed by a judge, and that warrant signed by that judge can only exist under certain circumstances. Here's the Fourth Amendment in its entirety. The entire amendment is one sentence. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. In other words, you can't kick in somebody's door without a judge looking at the evidence, hearing from a witness, and saying, yes, there's probable cause that a crime is being committed here, and therefore I will give you that warrant. But now ICE is saying, we don't need no stinking warrant. We can use administrative warrants. An administrative warrant is just something that somebody inside ICE said, you know, okay, go get this guy. This is just a naked violation of the Fourth Amendment. It's mind-boggling. And then on top of that, now we get this new threat assessment that was just leaked from the Trump administration. You know, every year since 2020, the Department of Homeland Security puts together a threat assessment. And up until now, the threats have always been, oh, gee, look at ISIS, you know, wants to come here and kick our butts, or Al-Qaeda is still a threat, or, you know, the Tren de Agua is, you know, selling cocaine in Los Angeles, whatever. But this, for the very first time, apparently, according to, now this is Ken Klippenstein's work, for the very first time, the federal government of the United States is saying that the #1 threat to America is coming from, quote, class-based or economic grievances. Domestic terrorists who are operating on class-based or economic grievances. In other words, Well, union organizers maybe, people who are sick and tired of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer in the United States. People who remember that 2/3 of us were in the middle class when Ronald Reagan came into office and know that it's down to 43% of us now, that we used to be able to achieve that status with a single paycheck. Now it takes at least two, and it's still 43% of us. Our government, our Department of Homeland Security, there's that homeland word again, the DHS now saying that not only can their agents come to your house or my house and kick in the door without a warrant from a judge, but that we are the biggest threat. We, American citizens, people in the United States who have, quote, class-based or economic grievances are the biggest threat. I mean, I get it. There's billionaires out there, right-wing billionaires out there who are very, very concerned. They're buying up the television networks. One of them just bought CBS. Another is competing to buy CNN. Well, maybe it's the same guy. We'll see. And, they've got their bunkers and they've got their double, triple security and they fly on their private jets and they live on their yachts and they stay as far away from the rest of us as they can, but they're still a little nervous. And Donald Trump is one of them. He's a billionaire. He's got 13 billionaires in his cabinet. I get it. The billionaire class is a little nervous that, hey, there's a populist revolt going on. In fact, it started in the Republican Party. I mean, I suppose you could argue it started in the Democratic Party with Bernie Sanders like 20, 25 years ago, but whatever. We are not the threat, Republicans. The threat is your own guy who refuses to acknowledge the law. The threat is an administration that's refusing to carry out the law. For example, the Epstein Transparency Act. The threat are these bozos who are trying to make Jack Smith look like he did something wrong when all he did was investigate the crimes that we all saw Donald Trump commit right in front of our eyes. What say you? I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
By the way, what kind of doorbell camera do you have? Stick around. I'll tell you about that. I'll pick up your calls. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is the second, Race and Guns in a Fatally Unequal America by Carol Anderson. This is from the introduction. It was like a snuff film, that July 6th, 2016 live stream. Philando Castile sat in his car, buckled in, bleeding, dying. "Why did you shoot him, sir?" asked his fiancée, Diamond Reynolds, pain piercing her every word. Castile, who had been pulled over in a suburb of St. Paul, Minnesota, because his quote, wide-set nose, end quote, supposedly resembled that of a robbery suspect, had been reaching for his ID, but in order to avoid any surprises, let the police officer know he had a gun with him, a legally permitted, right-to-carry concealed gun. That was all the cop needed to know. Officer Geronimo Yanez began shooting. Castile's death came just one day after Alton Sterling's down in Louisiana. He, too, was carrying a gun, which was not unusual in this right-to-carry state. Granted, Sterling had a felony conviction, so owning a firearm was for him illegal, but he had been robbed before and wanted protection. On July 5th, 2016, the Baton Rouge police received a 911 call that there was a man with a weapon threatening customers at a local convenience store. As officers rolled onto the scene, they saw Sterling sitting there selling CDs and DVDs, just as the store owner allowed him to do and indeed welcomed. The threatening man was not Sterling. In fact, there was no threatening man. It had been a prank call, but that didn't matter. Within a few minutes, police had thrown the black man down, pinned him to the asphalt, and then started yelling that Sterling had a gun. He did. It was in his pocket where he could hardly reach it, what with the officers squatting on both his legs and one arm. Nevertheless, the police began firing round after round into his prone body, point blank. Blood poured out of his chest. But not for long. Alton Sterling was dead. The back-to-back deaths of these two black men police had shot for carrying guns should have jolted into action the Second Amendment's staunchest advocate, the National Rifle Association. In 1995, for example, the organization's denunciations flew fast and furious when it contended that law enforcement not only overreacted, but went out of its way to kill gun owners. Angered by the deaths at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas, and the siege and firefight at Ruby Ridge, Idaho, both of which were sparked by federal agents serving warrants for weapons violations, Wayne LaPierre, the NRA's executive vice president, angrily wrote, quote, "If you have a badge, you have the government's go-ahead to harass, intimidate, and even murder law-abiding citizens," end quote. He further denounced cops as, quote, "jackbooted government thugs who have more power to take away our constitutional rights, break in our doors, seize our guns, destroy our property, and even injure or kill us." Nearly 2 decades later, that sentiment had not changed. This was evident when Nevada rancher Cliven Bundy, who had refused to pay over $1 million in fees for grazing his cattle on public land, summoned his gun-toting, self-styled militiamen to do battle with federal authorities to prevent the seizure of his herd for restitution. Richard Mack, a former recipient of the NRA's Law Enforcement Officer of the Year award, asserted, "If federal agents are going to start killing people, I'm sorry, but to show the world how ruthless these people are, women and children need to be placed in the front lines as human shields." Mack didn't flinch as he insisted, quote, "Women need to be the first ones shot. I would have put my own wife or daughter there on the front lines, and I would have been a screaming bloody murder to watch them die," end quote. Larry Pratt, a speaker at the NRA's 2014 National Convention, commenting on the fact that Bundy, quote, "backed them," the Bureau of Land Management agents, down with automatic rifles and other deadly weaponry, proudly called that armed confrontation, quote, "a proper, legitimate, lawful response to illegitimate, unlawful exercise of government power, particularly on the federal level," end quote. Yet how quickly the NRA's swagger disappeared when government agents gunned down Philando Castile and Alton Sterling for merely carrying guns. Sterling's death didn't even merit acknowledgement. As for Castile, the NRA broke its silence only after inordinate pressure from African-American members led the gun manufacturers' lobby to issue a tepid statement that the Second Amendment was applicable, quote, "regardless of race, religion, or sexual orientation." When pressed further by many of its members to stand up for Castile, the often fierce organization demurred, saying it was, quote, "important for the NRA not to comment while the investigation is ongoing." This situational silence did not go unnoticed. The NRA had not only loudly defended the rights of those at the Branch Davidian cult and at Ruby Ridge, men who had actually shot and killed members of law enforcement, but the organization had also doubled down on calling for more guns in the face of mass shootings in a public school in Newtown, Connecticut, and a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. Yet here, the guardian of the Second Amendment was now deliberately ignoring the inconvenient fact that black men had been killed for merely possessing a firearm. "Where's the NRA?" asked journalist Hannah Kozlowska. "Didn't Sterling and Philando Castile have Second Amendment rights too?" David Graham in The Atlantic coolly observed that, quote, "two shootings give a strong sense that the Second Amendment does not apply to black Americans the same way it does to white Americans," end quote. Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson wrote that he saw the old Jim Crow whites only sign plastered above the Second Amendment. The book, The Second, by Carol Anderson. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at tom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
They wear their robes like armor, from the bench they cast their spell. 6 hands raised in silence, and they banished hope to hell. No crime, no judge, no jury, just a passport stamped in shame. Send them where the sun don't rise and no one knows their name. It's moral cleansing American style, where cruelty gets buried under legal files. You don't need a gun when you got a plane, and due process dies without leaving a stain. Oh, it's clean on the surface, washed in denial. That's moral cleansing American style.
Welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour. So if you have a Ring doorbell, you might want to know about this. The Ring doorbells, of course, are owned by Amazon. And back in October, 3 months ago, Ring announced that its devices would be tied into the Flock AI surveillance camera network. Flock is a company that's got, that provides cities with license plate reader cameras. And they've got tens of thousands of these all across the United States. So now, any police department can basically track anybody anywhere just by their license plate with the Flock cameras. Well, adding in Ring is going to add millions of doorbell cameras. And this information is being purchased by ICE. And so now, see, if you've got a Ring doorbell, you don't control when it sends information to ICE. It can be continuously sending information to ICE. It can be tracking every time you come and go, but also anytime anybody who goes by your house or comes to visit you or anything else. If the Electronic Frontier Foundation is warning that, quote, Ring is actively eroding civil liberties in the U.S. for profit. There's a poster that says your Ring camera is an ICE agent. Now, I can't tell you this from my own knowledge. I'm not an engineer and I'm not, an expert on Ring, but apparently, according to 404 Media, and Futurism.com, this article by Joe Wilkins, the headline is "Furious Amazon Ring cameras are hooked up to ICE system." People are starting to get pretty flipped out about this. We had an advertiser, a decade ago or thereabouts. It was when Louise and I lived on the boat in Washington, D.C., and it was SimpliSafe, SimpliSafe.com, SimpliSafe. And so we bought their security system, and they got great cameras and stuff, but it's all, you control it. It's not going to ICE. So there are alternatives to Ring cameras, apparently, although, maybe if enough people speak out, Amazon will back away from their deal with ICE, or at least the one that's being reported here. So what's on your mind today? Dennis in Aptos, California. Hey, Dennis, what's up?
Yeah, hi. I saw a little bit of the hearing today with Jack Smith. Mm-hmm. When I turned on the TV, Daryl Issa, who's down in the El Cajon area of San Diego, he was grilling Smith and not letting him answer.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, Issa should have been in prison years ago. He apparently owned an auto dealership that he set on fire to get insurance money.
That's the claim, yeah.
Yeah, and he got away with it. But anyway, I thought the Tennessee representative, I can't think of his name, he's a Democrat. I think it's an Irish-sounding last name. He basically allowed Smith to answer the questions that the Republicans kept interrupting him on, so that he could never answer the questions because they kept interrupting him when he started his answers.
Yeah, I saw that.
I thought that was a brilliant strategy.
Moment. Yeah, I thought it was good too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to bring that up. And, just one more thing really briefly. I guess Trump is giving up on Greenland. I can imagine when he did that rambling, 1.5 hour speech the other day, all he had to do was look at the crowd, and he probably saw their faces. He didn't have to be heckled. He just saw their faces.
Lawrence O'Donnell, for weeks, has been saying that Trump never had any intention of getting Greenland. He never had any intention of taking Greenland. that the whole thing was just, he just was reaching for the biggest, most absurd, most obscene, most outrageous thing he could do that would cause us to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And it worked.
Well, that and also, and I did see Lawrence O'Donnell last night. I saw about the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'd have to say he's correct.
Yeah.
You know, Lawrence has the pulse of things. A lot of times he's very correct.
I agree.
And I think that's probably true. I don't think though that Epstein's going to be over yet. I'm glad the Clintons decided they're not going to testify in front of what would be another kangaroo court. And in fact,
Yeah.
I would have hoped that the Clintons would have said, "We'll talk when you bring Trump up there."
Well, what they did say is that they would talk in public.
Epstein.
They just said that they wouldn't talk in private. And
Oh,
so,
yeah, that's right.
you know,
It was supposed to be a private thing.
that's right. I would love to see Bill Clinton take the stand and say, I heard from all these people that Epstein and Trump were having, fill in the blank, right?
Well, yeah, and you know, it kind of brings to my mind, why would Jim Jordan eventually, he decided we were going to have an open meeting with Jack Smith. Do you have any reasons why he might have come up with that? Is it because it was already on YouTube and people could see the testimony he gave in December? Because
I'm
he
not
could have
sure.
just kept the whole thing quiet.
Yeah, I've been wondering why they invited Jack Smith to speak in public. I mean, this was a Republican decision. They think they're going to win out of this, I suspect, or they think that maybe this will be the thing that finally takes down Mad King Donald. I mean, there are concerns in the Republican caucus that Donald Trump is nuts and a risk, a danger, a threat to American democracy. There still are a few Republicans who care about such things. So maybe
I have to wonder if the Democrat threatened to open up something about Jim Jordan's compliance with Dr. Strauss at Ohio State, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
I would suggest taking a look at that film, Surviving Ohio State, and the photos that Dr. Strauss took of Jim Jordan in his wrestling togs are very interesting photographs to take a look at.
Okay.
You should do that, Tom.
All right. I'll check it out. Dennis, thanks for the call. It's good to hear from you.
Sure. Bye-bye now.
Yeah, bye now. Gary in Oakland. Hey, Gary, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I'm a long-time listener and second-time caller.
Thank you, Gary.
And I'm also a monthly donor. But anyway, I wanted to relate this video that I came across. And it's a video, you're looking down probably from a second-story window, and you hear a couple of people narrating this video, talking very quietly, and they're focused on two guys on this snowy sidewalk talking to each other. And after a while, you hear one car horn going off. Then you hear two or three other car horns going off. And the two guys down on the snowy sidewalk are looking around like, what's going on? What's going on? And pretty soon, the whole neighborhood, all their car horns are going off, and you see a gaggle of ICE guys coming out of this side street or maybe a residence. Not really clear because you're back a bit from it. But I thought it was really cool that you could watch this go on, and it's neighbors protecting neighbors without confrontation.
Yeah, it's become a thing in Minneapolis. I'm guessing it's going to spread to other cities. They're supposed to be popping up in Portland, Maine this week, too.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got to say.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one, Gary. It's a good one. And we'll see. We'll see how long this outrage lasts. Gary, thank you for the call. I think Americans are getting sick of it. And the polling is showing that Americans are getting sick of it, too. So, of ICE and the brutality and all this other stuff. Stay with us. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
45 minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us. It's the Thom Hartmann program, the place where smart people get their news. And welcome back, Diane in Lansing, Michigan. Hey, Diane, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I would like to alert you to the Unauthorized Spending Accountability Act, H.R. 143, that my idiot congressman is trying to get through. And according to what it says here, it would phase out any federal spending on programs that aren't authorized by Congress after 3 years. Now, isn't that what Ron Johnson tried to get through a few years ago?
Yeah, it's a automatic sunset provision sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to go anywhere.
Okay, well, I just wanted to call and give you a heads up and make sure all of the people in my district, District 7, vote this guy out. His name is Tom Barrett.
Tom Barrett. He's a Republican, I assume?
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing.
And we have Bridget Brink maybe running against him. Her and two other people are vying for the primary.
Uh-huh. Is Lansing a red city now?
No.
But you have a Republican congressman?
We do now. We used to have Alyssa Slotkin before him, but then we got the district redistricting committee, and he's a first-term congressman because he wrote in on Trump's shirt tails.
Yeah. Okay.
So
well,
I'm crossing my fingers that we can get him out of there this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. Diane, thank you for the call, and thanks for the information.
You're welcome.
It's always nice to hear from my hometown. Thank you. Phil in Salinas, California. Hey, Phil, what's on your mind today?
I had the same problem with Jim Jordan as the guy a couple of callers ago, that there was something going on the wrestling team, and he was part of it, and it had to do with sex.
Yeah.
So that's my question: is did they just drop that?
To the best of my knowledge, the investigation into that sexual abuse at the University of Ohio never reached Jim Jordan. I mean, there have been allegations that he knew what was going on and either concealed it or didn't speak about it. But I've never seen any of those accusations turned into, something actionable. You would think that if somebody was, and let me just put a caveat on this. I am not an expert on Jim Jordan and Ohio State. I've read a few stories in the press, but I haven't really done a deep dive on it. But you would think that if any of the victims of that knew or had any evidence that Jordan knew about it and didn't do anything, that they would have a cause for suing him. And I don't know that that's happened. But like I said, I'm not the authority on that case. So look it up.
Yeah, well, I wonder about Ohio State now.
Yeah.
Are they? I don't know that they're not Republican.
Well, the state of Ohio is under the control of the Republicans, yeah, in large part because the Secretary of State was purging people from the voting rolls in the big cities, mostly Cleveland and Cincinnati, and Columbus, and in a way that was just blatantly illegal, and he got sued. And it went to the Supreme Court. His name is John Husted. And it went to the Supreme Court, and 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said what he's doing is just fine, mailing postcards into these neighborhoods and then purging people if they don't respond to the postcards. So that,
I have my view about the Supreme Court. I think there are 6 members on it that are illegal.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you, Phil. I wouldn't use quite that word, but I don't disagree. Thank you very much for the call. We'll be right back. 49 minutes past the hour. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So back in 1933, when Franklin Roosevelt became president, we were in the depths of the Great Depression. He raised the top income tax rate on billionaires from 25% to 90%. The ultra-rich were screaming, and here's what he had to say.
A number of my friends who belong in the very high upper bracket have suggested to me on several occasions of late that if I am re-elected president, they will have to move to some other nation because of high taxes here. Now, I will miss them very much.
He just took it right to them, right? Now, what came out of that was the world's largest and fastest growing and first major middle class. We can do this again. We just have to raise taxes on rich people. It's pretty straightforward. There's a whole article about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour. Picking up your calls here. Kenneth in Seattle. Hey, Kenneth, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, a very small point. A couple of days ago, I don't remember exactly when, but a couple of days ago, you mentioned the Norwegian novelist, very influential, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, Newt somebody or other.
That's right. That's what I wanted to tell you, his last name. His last name is Hamsun, 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 Newt Hamsun.
Okay.
And anyway, he backed Hitler. So
yeah,
you know how bizarre for such a brilliant.
Yeah, he gave his Nobel Prize to Goebbels, was it? Yeah, it was Goebbels.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I forgot that, but exactly.
Yeah. And it's a sad thing, and now you've got Trump. You know, he took Machado's Nobel Prize, and now he's trash talking her. I mean, she's got to be feeling burned. Incredible.
Yeah.
Kenneth, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, good talking to you. Mary in Kansas City, Missouri. Hey, Mary, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. Love your program and follow you on Facebook and your Hartmann Report.
Thank you.
Regarding Jack Smith and his testimony and why the Republicans are doing this, I watched some of it this morning. They're not letting him explain anything. They're just putting out their statements, getting him to say yes or no to something they want to slant their way so they can get their sound bites and run on Fox News and not let him say anything.
Yeah, the
Democrats are not doing a very good job of combating that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I noticed that. The Democrats are interested in getting on the record the actual facts of the case. The Republicans are interested in preventing any facts from coming out because, I mean, there's two cases here. Did Donald Trump try to overthrow our government? Yeah, obviously. And did he steal a bunch of classified documents and lie about it to the FBI? Yes, obviously. So the Republicans don't want to talk about any of that. And so what they're trying to do is dirty up Jack Smith's reputation. They're trying to characterize him as some sort of weird partisan, with a vendetta, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Catering to the usual Republican paranoia. I don't think it's going to work.
And from the questions and testimony going this morning, it sounds like they're going to try to refer him to Pam Bondi for some action.
Yeah.
That's the way it sounds, and it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Regarding Jim Jordan, anyone who wants to know more about Jim Jordan and his activities should check out William Chaucer Riley online and search that and see what they find out.
Okay. And I'm going to, I asked the guys in our video department here to try to pull up C-SPAN, and maybe we can carry this instead of the book report at the top of the hour. We've done that before with congressional hearings, so I'm going to try to get the video for this thing out to you. Mary, thank you for the call. Okay. Jeff in Dearborn, Michigan. Hey, Jeff, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I'm worried. I watched the beginning of this, and I'm looking at Jack Smith as another version of, he's as feckless as Merrick Garland. He just sits there and lets himself be bulldozed over. He's not making his case at all. Yeah. And I'm concerned that the Democrats are just sitting by and letting it happen. And my concern is that come November, the Dems are going to lose.
Well, it's always possible, Jeff. I think that what Jack Smith has in the back of his mind, and I believe this is an absolutely accurate analysis, is that what the Republicans are trying to do here is lay a trap for Jack Smith. Donald Trump wants Jack Smith to go to prison. And so what they're going to try and do is they're going to try and get him to say something that is not true, to commit perjury, unintentionally, to blunder into something, to say, yes, I said that when he didn't, or no, I didn't say that when he did, whatever. Some little thing that they can use. And then they're going to have Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and the whole bunch, bring charges against him for felony perjury, for lying to Congress.
Well,
and so he's being very, very careful not to give them that ammunition. I think that's what's going on. I
think he looks weak, and like I said, I'm concerned about November. And if the Dems lose in November, we're done here.
Oh yeah, that is the end of America. I completely agree with that
we're
analysis.
done in this country. My wife and I, we're out of here.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, okay. Good luck with that, Jeff. Thanks for the call. Rebecca in L.A. Hey, Rebecca, what's up?
Hey, listen to you all the time, every morning, Tom.
Thank you.
I'm calling because there has been a resurgence of, well, not a resurgence, but a resurgence in being aware of Black Panther Party, specifically for self-defense, coming out of Philadelphia, making waves online, led by Chairman Paul Birdsong. You can find him on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go ahead and let people know that he made a call for folks that want to learn more, that have questions about what they're doing. He's made an open invite, I think, Saturday, January 31st at noon, but you can go on that Instagram page at Chairman Paul Birdsong to hear that announcement. He will be there with some original OG Panthers. There's been some speculation or rhetoric coming out from someone claiming to be Huey P. Newton's niece, saying that they're fraudulent, but I don't know that this person is who
So
she
the Panthers
says she
are
is.
back. I mean, they never really went away altogether, but
Right. And there's footage of them being out in the public, educated with, the fact that they're able to arm themselves. There was, some brutality towards teenagers in Philadelphia. I'm from Philadelphia. I asked my friends about it. They went and met with them. They're like, they're the real deal. I hung out with them at a food drive. They are doing the on-the-ground work that the Panthers typically, what made people trust them and know them.
Sure, yeah, what they were famous for. Rebecca, thanks. Thanks for the heads up and for the tip on that. I appreciate it. We'll be back. Phil Ittner, live from Ukraine, internet gods willing, will be with us on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
It's Thom Hartmann. We're reading from Dark Money, the hidden history of the billionaires behind the rise of the radical right in today's Thom Hartmann University Book Club. This is from chapter 11, page 271. The official opening of the 112th Congress took place on January 5th, 2011, when Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, handed off an oversized ceremonial gavel to her successor, John Boehner. But a new era of ultra-conservative billionaire influence had already begun. Before the public swearing-in ceremony got underway, David Koch, whose donor network had spent at least $130.7 million on winning a Republican majority, was in the new Speaker-to-be's office, ornate office, chatting amiably with his staff. The People's House was under new management, and critics would suggest new ownership. While Koch was a very public presence on the Capitol, his political adjutant, Tim Phillips, the president of Americans for Prosperity, was deep in the inner sanctum of the congressional committee that mattered most to the bottom line of Koch Industries. Phillips's most important destination that day was the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which under the new Republican majority had now increased its power to block President Obama's environmental agenda in Congress. The committee could bury progress on climate change and harass the EPA for the foreseeable future. And then just jumping through a little anecdote about Lee Fong and David Koch, they continue. In Plutocrats, the rise of the new global super rich and the fall of everyone else, journalist Krista Freeland describes how those with massive financial resources almost universally use them to secure politics and policies beneficial to their interests, often at the expense of the less well-off. In the United States, a number of studies have shown that in recent years, this tendency has distorted politics in very specific ways. In a study he conducted for the nonpartisan Sunlight Foundation, the political scientist Lee Drutman found that increasingly concentrated wealth in America resulted in more polarization and extremism, especially on the right. Very rich benefactors in the Republican Party were far more opposed to taxes and regulations than the rest of the country. He discovered the more Republicans depend upon 1% of the 1% donors, the more conservative they tend to be. The 112th Congress soon unfolded as a case study of what David Frum, an advisor to the former President George W. Bush, described as the growing and, in his view, destructive influence of the Republican Party's radical rich. The radicalization of the party's donor base, he observed, has propelled the party to advocate policies that were more extreme than anything since Barry Goldwater and his 1964 presidential campaign. It also led Republicans in Congress to try tactics they would never have dared use before, end quote. Hard data supported this. Harvard's Theta Scott poll found that the House took the biggest leap to the far right since political scientists began recording quantitative measurements of legislators' positions. There was no better example than the Koch's newly won influence over the House Energy and Commerce Committee. In the previous Congress, the panel had been chaired by Henry Waxman, the liberal Democrat from California, who had quarterbacked the House's successful passage of the cap-and-trade bill, only to see it die in the Senate. Now the new Republican leadership stocked the committee with oil industry advocates, many of whom owed huge campaign debts to the Kochs. Koch Industries' PAC was the single largest oil and gas industry donor to members of the panel, outspending even ExxonMobil. It had donated to 22 of the committee's 31 Republican members and 5 of its Democratic members, too. In addition, 5 out of the 6 Republican freshmen on the committee had received outside support from Americans for Prosperity. Meanwhile, many of the new committee members had signed an unusual pledge swearing fealty to the Koch's agenda. They promised to vote against any kind of carbon tax unless it was offset by comparable spending cuts, an unlikely scenario. The no climate tax pledge was invented by Americans for Prosperity in 2008, when the Supreme Court cleared the way for the EPA to regulate greenhouse gases as it does other pollutants. The Koch's pledge was modeled on the enormously successful one that the anti-tax crusader Grover Norquist had used to intimidate Republican lawmakers from raising taxes. But in this instance, it served not a cause so much as a company. By the start of the legislative session in 2011, fully 156 members of Congress had signed the Koch brothers' no climate tax pledge. Many returning members of the House Energy and Commerce Committee had already taken the pledge, and of the 12 new Republicans on the panel, 9 were signatories, including 5 of the 6 freshmen. A prime example of the symbiotic relationship between the Kochs and the committee was Morgan Griffith, who had defeated Rick Boucher in the district that represented Saltville, Virginia, and was among the new wave of appointees to the Energy and Commerce Committee who were openly indebted to the Koch brothers for their seats. Americans for Prosperity operatives were guests of honor at a victory rally soon after the election, at which Griffith gushed, quote, "I'm just thankful that you all helped me out in so many ways," end quote. The Koch's investment soon paid off. Once in office, Griffith became an outspoken skeptic of mainstream climate science, drawing national ridicule for lecturing scientific experts as they testified before Congress that they needed to consider the possibility that Mesopotamia and the Vikings owed their success to global warming, and the melting ice caps on Mars showed that humans were not its cause on Earth. Congressman Griffith became a lead player in the House Republicans' war on the EPA, demanding that the agency be reined in. Within a month after he took office, he and other House Republicans gutted the EPA budget by a punishing 27%. Dark Money, The Hidden History of the Billionaires Behind the Rise of the Radical Right by Jane Mayer.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the second hour of our program. On the line with us, our buddy Phil Ittner, the veteran war correspondent based out of Kyiv, Ukraine. Philip Ittner on YouTube, Ittner Philip on Twitter, on social media. And Phil, do you have any heat now?
No, currently not. Well, we went through a period of about 25 hours. Well, I went through, my building went through a period of about 25 hours without electricity. It returned for about 5 hours today. But currently we've lost it again. So I'm back on to back up these, kind of massive solid state batteries, such as, this.
Oh my, yeah. UPS.
There you go.
Yeah.
Back onto that, and I can survive on that for about 12 hours. But heating within the building itself has not returned. We were told by Mayor Klitschko here in Kiev that that some 3,000 homes were expected to get heating back within the next 2 days or so. Hopefully I'll be included in that. But it's, it's massive damage to the electrical grid here. And much of this city is still in darkness and without heat and without power and without in many cases, water.
Yeah.
So, Kiev is still struggling from some massive attacks that happened about 2 weeks ago.
Amazing. So Zelensky was supposed to go to Davos. Did he make it or not?
He did make it today, which was in question. Because yesterday, when Trump made his catastrophic speech in Davos, he said that he expected to meet with Zelensky later in the day, but Zelensky was here saying, I can't leave my capital while it's in crisis. But then it does look, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't want to get over my skis or overly optimistic, but it does look like there is a move towards a return to some kind of normalcy. So Zelensky got on a plane apparently today. Obviously went by rail or car, crossed into Poland or whatever, and then flew to Davos and actually did have a meeting with Trump. And they have, Zelensky's very smart. He has come out of that meeting with Trump, trying to address as many different audiences as possible, both Trump and the Europeans. Zelensky was a little bit critical of the Europeans and their slow uptake on providing their own defense for a country that is on the border between, an aggressive Russia and their own, European Union, which I'm sure was music to Trump's ears. And then, also was very respectful and kind of like deferent, showing deference to Trump, because the Ukrainians still need American aid.
Yeah.
And so he is caught in he is caught between a rock and a hard place. But
Trump has been stringing him along for a whole year now, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, he's at a disadvantage with Trump because Trump doesn't want to support Ukraine. Right. He's made that clear time and time again. Trump doesn't want to support NATO. I mean, much of that speech yesterday was about destroying the transatlantic relationship.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more apparent that
Trump is Putin's agent, in my opinion.
This is, well, I mean, yes, I've been saying this for years, and I get accused of being, a conspiracy theorist and all that. But I've studied Russian spycraft, intelligence operations, military operations for going on 30 years now, and it's textbook. It's absolutely textbook. They've done it in other countries where they compromise the leader and then they make them beholden to them, or they get them to see the world through their prism.
Yeah.
And the Russian prism is that there needs to be large blocks of power, regions that are controlled, and then, the big boys can work it out.
Right.
If you're a smaller country who happens to be, unfortunately, a neighbor to a place like the Russian Empire, well, then tough luck.
Yeah.
Such is your lot.
Yeah, tripartite world, basically, a tripolar world.
Yes, and it appears, and as we're seeing with what's happening with Greenland, it appears that Donald Trump shares the same mentality. And now whether that was something that was engineered by the Kremlin, where they have coerced him and they've kind of, well, not coerced, but they've groomed him into this mentality, or whether or not this is a mentality he's held since a child because of his, kind of very, black and white, null sum, idea of power, who's to say? But at the end of the day, they're aligned closer to one another, Putin and Trump, than Europe is with America, which is a rift, which is exactly what Putin wants.
Right.
So who's to say whether or not this is something that was orchestrated, or whether or not they see the world the same way? Either way, this plays right into Russia's hands. This is exactly what Vladimir Putin wants, and Donald Trump is handing it to him on a platter.
To what extent has Europe been able to fill that void? And is it getting better or is it getting worse in terms of, arming Ukraine?
In terms of arming Ukraine, I think it's getting better. Unfortunately, a lot of it is still dependent on America. So Europe is having to go to America, buy the American equipment, and then transfer it here. In particular, air defense, because we wouldn't be in this situation had Ukraine had better air defense to protect its electrical grid.
Right. Phil, you just froze up. Uh-oh. I mean, this is an unpredictable thing here with, getting internet out of Ukraine when there's no power. I don't know what just happened, but I'm gonna hit a break here and thank Phil, the veteran war correspondent based out of Kyiv, Ukraine, Phil Ittner. His podcast is called On the Edge, and it's worth checking out. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
15 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, your media support group for We the People. And welcome back. Ken in Long Beach, California. Hey, Ken, what's on your mind today?
Well, I don't know if this is going to be appropriate anymore now that Trump's got his new alternative to the UN, but the 22nd Amendment precluded Truman from running for office in 52, but because he ascended the first time from vice presidency and ran for election a second time, so he couldn't run for a third presidency. But what if Trump, who ran twice, then ran for vice president and ascended by kicking the Republican president out. One of his toadies, like.
Yeah, this is exactly what Putin did with Dmitry Medvedev. Is, you know, the Russian Constitution originally limited the president's term to 2 terms. After he served his 2nd term, Putin stepped back and ran for essentially vice president of Russia, and Medvedev ran for president. And then Medvedev, of course, won, and then, you know, Putin just continued to pull all the strings, and then they modified the Constitution. You know, if Trump was 10 or 20 years younger, I suspect he would be trying to do exactly that, but I don't think he's going to make it through the next 3 years.
Totally to get out of the way.
Yeah, I think he's getting feeble fast. I'm not sure that he's going to die or anything like that, but I think it's, you know, it's just becoming increasingly obvious that this guy is losing it physically and mentally. So we'll see. Ken, thanks for the call. Katya in Lancaster, California. Hey, Katya, what's up?
You were talking about Jim Jordan earlier.
Mm-hmm.
There is a documentary about Ohio State. I think it's on HBO. And they talked about him, how he was joking with the other gym coaches that with his new guys coming in, oh, yeah, you're going to see our doctor, all right. You'll get the full exam. Mm-hmm. Every time any of them in all of the teams, football, soccer, swimming, didn't matter. They had to go to this doctor, and he would always start out in their genitals. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't figure out why. And some of the guys gave up their scholarships from the trauma. Mm-hmm. They sued him, and they went after it and let the scandal come out because they saw the girls on the Olympic gymnastics team going after Nasser. So they decided to come out after him, too. Mm-hmm. Jim Jordan called up one of the guys that got molested, and his brother was going to testify. He also was molested, and he was crying to this guy, begging him not to testify against his own brother, so he wouldn't get outed.
Wow.
So there is a documentary. I think it's called Ohio State. I'm not quite sure, but it's out there. Anybody can see it. And
yeah, it's called Surviving Ohio State. Is that the one that
there it goes.
Who produced that, Sean? George Clooney produced that, apparently. So
okay, yeah, it's out there.
Yeah, very interesting. Surviving Ohio State. I haven't seen it, so I'm you know, now I've got another thing on my list. All righty. Well, thank you very much, Katya. I appreciate the information.
Okay.
Good talking to you. It's 19 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 1 minute. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So back when Donald Trump debated Kamala Harris, he was asked about world leaders and whatnot, and he went off on this thing praising a guy named Viktor Orban and saying he's a tough guy, he's smart, he's the prime minister of Hungary, and he loves me, basically. So who is Viktor Orban? Well, it turns out Viktor Orban is a guy who, took over Hungary in a regular election, the prime minister, and then turned it into basically a neo-fascist paradise for right-wingers. All the media is now controlled by right-wing oligarchs. He's packed the courts. He's changed the Constitution so that they have things like gerrymandering and voter suppression, so he always wins every election. He throws people in jail for criticizing him, even on Facebook. I mean, this is what Hungary has become. Fox News loves it. Tucker Carlson did his show from there for a week, and that's what Donald Trump wants to do to America. You can read the whole thing over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Trump's New Hero, the strongman who crushed democracy in Hungary. Check it out. 20 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Just a little more news here and talk about stuff that's going on in the world. The Trump administration is hunting for Cuban defectors now. Daniel Hampton reporting over at rawstory.com, riding high after the dramatic ouster of Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro, the Trump administration is now zeroing in on Cuba, hunting for government insiders willing to cut a deal and help dismantle the communist regime by the end of this year. This is the thing that, Trump have victory in a foreign entanglement, and that will, ride the Republicans into to victory in the elections in November, right? That was George W. Bush's calculus, you'll recall, when he told Mickey Herskowitz in 1999 that if he got elected, he wanted to have a little war with Iraq, because when you're in a war, especially if you're winning, they always reelect you. So Trump, back in January, on Truth Social, had said, I strongly suggest they make a deal before it's too late. The Trump team is holding meetings with Cuban exiles and civic groups in Miami and Washington, searching for somebody inside Havana's government who might see the writing on the wall. So, I've been saying all along, I think Marco Rubio is driving this. For years, he lied about his parents being Cuban refugees when, in fact, they were just, they left Cuba 2 years before Castro came in. And finally, that a winter storm is coming to Texas when you see Ted Cruz hopping on a plane to Laguna Beach. It's a nice coastal destination, right, in Orange County, California, popular vacation destination. Last July, when Texas had deadly flooding, Ted went to the Greek islands. And then back in 2021, when the winter storm struck, leaving millions without water or power, Ted went to Cancun, which is why they call him Cancun Ted. So now the National Weather Service is warning that a large portion of Texas could be affected this weekend by dangerously cold temperatures. Moderate to heavy accumulations of snow, sleet, or ice are also likely. And so in a post on X, Cruz says, my team and I are monitoring the incoming cold front that could bring snow, ice, and disruptive weather conditions to parts of the Lone Star State later this week. What he kind of failed to mention was he's getting out of town. Getting is good. Yes, good old Ted. So what's on your mind today? Michael in Bronx, New York. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Excuse the way I sound. I'm a little sluggish. I'm recovering from illness. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry to hear that you were not feeling well.
Yeah, I'm getting better. I thought to bring to your attention, I don't know if you've seen lately Christine Nome repeating her stupid commercial ad of some CBP app telling what she calls illegal aliens, which is the wrong term, by the way. It's undocumented immigrants, if any. That if you apply for it and leave willingly, you can come back in the future or what have you.
Right.
That's her words. That's been airing a lot ever since.
She's not mentioning the fact that they're no longer responding to those appeals?
That was one of the things I was about to say, Tom. Gosh, you know how to read my mind. That they had suspended immigration processes until further notice or indefinitely.
Yep.
So right there's a lie. But then she's trying to do damage control to the already numerous incidents in Congress that she's already in deep doo-doo, if I can use that term. And then now we find out that there's a whistleblower within ICE that said about administrative warrants,
right,
which don't mean a thing
right,
as to judicial warrants. Only judicial warrants are legal.
Correct.
And so somebody, any Tom, Dick, and Harry could turn around and sign some stupid administrative warrant. Which
right, and they're using these
papers.
illegal warrants as the basis to kick in doors, to drag away children. They kidnapped a
Right.
5-year-old yesterday and used him as bait to get his dad or his mom out of work or something like that. I mean, it's just.
And then told that child after he said, "Look, can I go home?" And then they say, "No, you're not going home."
Right.
I mean, goodness gracious, so much for keeping the nation safe, which they're not. All we see is
Safety's got nothing to do with it, Michael. This is all about Trump trying to
Terrorism.
gin up an insurrection. So yeah, he's trying to terrorize American communities, and he's hoping to get enough pushback that it'll justify bringing in the military. And he's not in a real hurry to do it because he really wants to do that in September, October.
I just hope Congress is listening to what I'm pointing out or have taken note as to what the hell has gone on recently. And once again, as many of your other callers have said, distraction from the Epstein files.
Yeah. I mean, this is the big question that the Europeans are asking themselves: is did we just get punked? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that Trump did in the 70s and 80s when he was trying to get himself, on the front page of the New York Post every day. Every single day he'd wake up asking himself, how can I get my name in the media? And every day, and so it had to be something more outrageous. Oh, I just slept with this woman, or I just insulted this guy, or I'm going to pick a fight with this guy, or I just bought this building, or what. Every day there was something new. And it's increasingly obvious that that's what he did with Greenland, that all along he had no desire to take Greenland or get Greenland.
Let me ask you something quick before we go. Is your show heard worldwide?
Well, it's on the internet, so it could be, certainly.
It's on the internet?
Yeah.
Let me leave a message for everybody. Trump cannot be trusted, bottom line.
There you go. Michael, thank you. Very well said. 27 minutes past the hour. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
27 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back in just a minute. We're going to go to the hearings here before Jim Jordan's committee.
You aware of any of the other special counsels who had to do this?
I am not aware whether confidential sources were or were not used in those investigations.
That's because I don't think they were.
I'm not aware one way or the other. I can say that the use of confidential human sources is a standard thing done by the Federal Bureau of Investigations.
The time of the gentleman from Wisconsin has expired. I now yield to the gentlelady from Georgia for 5 minutes, Ms. McBath.
Thank you, Chairman. And Mr. Smith, thank you for appearing today to speak publicly about the major issues that you handled as special counsel. Your work on election interference in my home state is especially important, as Georgia still today remains ground zero for voting rights. My state has a long history of voter suppression, including violent tactics and legislation that has actively disfranchised our voters. In fact, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against Georgia in 2023 challenging recently passed voter suppression legislation. That lawsuit was later withdrawn by Donald Trump's Attorney General, Pam Bondi. But this is not the first time that Donald Trump has encouraged voter suppression. In the 2020 presidential election, which many have accepted that he lost, he pressured his party members to overturn a legal election. Thankfully, several public servants upheld our constitutional process and respected the voice of the people. Your investigation revealed how far he is willing to go. In your final report, you wrote that, and I'm quoting, the through line of all Mr. Trump's criminal efforts was deceit, knowingly false claims of fraud. Mr. Smith, what did your investigation reveal about President Trump's interactions with Georgia's officials regarding his frauds claims?
As I sit here now, I can recall two specific officials. The first was the Secretary of State, who was a fellow Republican. My understanding, he voted for and supported Donald Trump in the election, but told Donald Trump in a conversation that was recorded in no uncertain terms the results of the election, and debunked many of the fraud claims that Donald Trump had to him in real time. In addition to that, I recall that Donald Trump also spoke firsthand with the Attorney General of your state, also a Republican, who informed Donald Trump that he had supported him and voted for him twice in the past. He also told Donald Trump he did not see outcome determined fraud in that state.
I have an audio from a phone call between Trump and the Georgia Secretary of State regarding the 2020 election. Could you please play the audio?
Are angry. The people of the country are angry, and there's nothing wrong with saying that,
that you've recalculated.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
Mr. Smith, you explained in your deposition that Georgia's Secretary of State was one of the witnesses who disabused President Trump's false claims. How did Georgia's Secretary of State push back against Trump's efforts?
I think my recollection is in this same call, President Trump repeatedly raised fraud claims, and the Secretary of State repeatedly explained not only that they weren't true, but I believe my recollection is in several instances explained why they weren't true. And I believe that call ended, my recollection is that it ended with President Trump in essence threatening the Secretary of State that he might be a target for criminal prosecution if he didn't do what President Trump wanted him to do.
So see, that raises a very critical point. President Trump didn't just spread lies about the election. In your words, and I'm quoting, he preyed on, end quote, Republican officials in Georgia and other states who believed would help him. Mr. Smith, Donald Trump thought these officials would break the law out of party loyalty. And when those officials, his own political allies, told him the truth, he dismissed them and continued to spread the lies anyway. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Smith, if your case had gone to trial, would the evidence from Georgia have helped prove that President Trump knowingly engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the 2020 election?
Yes. After an investigation following the facts and the law, we believed we had proof beyond a reasonable doubt to prove those charges.
And in your deposition, you mentioned a fake elector witness in Georgia who you thought would have been a very powerful witness at trial. Can you tell us a little bit more about that in a very limited amount of time?
Sure. It was a witness who had been made to understand that his electoral vote, his alternative electoral vote, would only be used if they won in court, if they won in litigation. That didn't happen, and President Trump and his co-conspirators tried to use those alternative fake elector certificates to get Mike Pence.
Mr. Chairman, regular order.
Himself.
Okay, well, Mr. Smith, thank you so much for the work that you and your team of career prosecutors have put forth in uncovering this evidence. The American people need to know what happened, and they need to know how their president pressured Georgia state officials to overturn their free
Gentleman from Alabama has a unanimous consent request.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. December 6, 2025, Atlanta News First. Fulton County admits to verifying 315,000 votes in the 2020
Way back in 1964, when Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Republicans started this rant about how the election of 1960, Jock Kennedy stole that election, and there's voter fraud in America. And it became a thing. They started this thing called Operation Eagle Eye. William Rehnquist was running it in Arizona. Trying to intimidate Hispanics and African Americans into not voting, essentially. They've now used this claim that non-citizens are voting, this voter fraud claim, in virtually every red state to make it harder to vote, to purge people off the voting rolls, to make people's votes not counted with their exact signature matches. It's a scam. It's a grift that they've been running for 60 years, and the American media won't call them out on it. There's a whole piece about it called Trump and the GOP's Big Lie 2.0 over at HartmannReport.com. Please check it out. You'll find it fascinating.
They came in masks at the break of dawn, boots on the porch, radios on, no papers in hand, no names to say, just flashing a badge and taking the door away. Mama asked quiet, where's your right? They answered with sparks and electric light. Kids cried out in the hallway dark. Freedom bled from a taser spark. They don't knock when they're scared of the truth. They don't hide when they think they're immune. So how much will you take? America, how far will you bend? How deep will you break? When the law wears a mask and fear wears a flag, how much of your soul are you willing to hand back? How much will you take?
36 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So picking up your calls here, Quinn in Beaverton, Oregon. Hey, Quinn, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I wanted to bring up Project 2025 because I think that we have all forgotten about it, not bringing it up. But Russell Vaught and many other authors, Darren Bax, Lindsey Burke, David Burton, they wrote something that's very damaging to this country, and it reflects on the rest of the world too, outcomes. But the Heritage Foundation as well, and other white Christian nationalist groups are pretty strong, and they have a lot of influence on their parties. Let's not forget who these people are. Let's look into them. Let's make sure that they don't write a phase 3, because I think a lot of these people focusing on the Christian nationalism, that they're very afraid by 2045 that they're going to be the minority. So this ethnic cleansing, I guess you can call it, by getting rid of everybody here that they feel doesn't belong, no matter what process these people are in. That's what they're going for.
Yeah, no, they're already the minority in big chunks of America. Texas, for example, white people are no longer a majority in Texas. And it's one of the reasons why these guys are lashing out. Yeah.
Yeah. So just everybody out there, don't forget about this Project 2025. Look into it. Yeah. Let's see if we can stop these people somehow.
And this has been going on for a while. I mean, in 1980, when Ronald Reagan won the White House, when he came into office and when he was sworn in on July 20th, 1981, the very minute the hostages were released that he had cut the deal with to hang on to screw Jimmy Carter, the Heritage Foundation had produced one of these things for him, too. It wasn't called Project 2025 or Project 1981. It was called Mandate for Leadership. But it was essentially the same thing, and it called for these massive tax cuts, deregulation. In fact, Reagan did about a third of the stuff that was in it in his first year, and breaking the unions. I mean, this has been the dream of these right-wing billionaires, particularly the Koch brothers, but there's a whole collection of them for decades here, Quinn. I mean, yes. This is a long-term project to undo the New Deal and the Great Society, to end what they call socialism and take us to this libertarian paradise that they all think is going to magically exist here. And in fact, there's never been a libertarian country in the world that's succeeded.
Yeah, a lot of people that are, most of the Republicans or conservative people that have voted for their policies are really not surely fully aware of how it all works. They feel, I'm conservative. That's all it is. But
yeah, no, they read Ayn Rand's books, which are high school level, fantasies. This brother and sister who inherited a railroad from their tyrannical father and are trying to prevent the union from having safety features. Somehow they're the noble heroes, and John Galt and all that. I mean, it's pathetic. It really is. But it's also done an amazing amount of damage to this country. So, Quinn, thank you. Thank you for pointing it out. Good talking to you.
Thank you very much for my call. Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Nina in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Hey, Nina, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Nina.
I'm sorry.
It's quite all right.
I'm here.
Pick up the phone.
I'm sorry. I was listening to Jack Smith this morning before I went out for coffee, and then I got back in the car, and two friends kind of from the East Coast, they were calling me saying, "Oh, Jack Smith, what a great man. What a great man." Now, when I left here, I thought it was completely the opposite. Can you explain what's going on?
Well, Jack Smith is the guy who, after 2 years of blithering, Merrick Garland finally appointed a special prosecutor to investigate the crimes that Donald Trump had been accused of. And the two big ones, of course, were attempting to overthrow the election of 2021, or in January 6th of 2021. And stealing a whole bunch of top secret military plans, taking them down to Mar-a-Lago and putting them in places where they would be available to Russian and Chinese spies who came and gave Donald Trump a lot of money. And, Smith looked into these things and he was ready to prosecute Trump, and then Trump won the election. Smith had just come into and the big problem that Smith had was that the easiest case for him to prosecute would have been that theft of documents down in Florida, and Aileen Cannon, who was this judge, this Federalist Society judge, just decided to ignore the law and just let Donald Trump off the hook.
Yes.
So the Republicans now are trying to character assassinate Jack Smith because he's got the goods on Trump, and the Democrats are trying to get the story to come out that, yeah, Donald Trump actually is a criminal. He did commit crimes while he was in office last time, numerous crimes, and he needs to be held to account for those crimes. And he's continuing to commit crimes, although they're not asking Jack Smith about his opinion on, ongoing stuff. They're just, looking at the things, those two big things that he was prosecuting. So that's pretty much it, Nina. Does that help?
So what is the ultimate goal to have Jack Smith come out and say all this? What is
the Republicans?
Is there a point?
Well, Donald Trump desperately wants Jack Smith to go to prison. He views Jack Smith as his tormentor, and he's already had the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi et al., his Attorney General, and FBI Director Kash Patel. He's already had them direct their tender mercies toward 14 people that he considers his political enemies, including a bunch of Republicans, people like Jim Comey and John Brennan. But also Democrats, Adam Schiff, and now he's going after the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis. So Trump desperately wants Jack Smith in prison. Jack Smith hasn't done anything worthy of going to prison. So what the Republicans are desperately trying to do, and when you watch these hearings, you'll notice that they're very carefully constructing their questions to do what's called a perjury trap. And a perjury trap is where they try to lead you into blundering into saying something that is just demonstrably not true, and then they can charge you with the crime of lying to Congress because you uttered an untruth. So the goal of the Republicans is not the public relations stuff this morning that it looks like. The goal of the Republicans here is to get one lie out of Jack Smith in all of these hours and then hand that off to Pam Bondi so that she can prosecute him and put him in prison, and then Donald Trump will be happy. The goal of the Democrats is to point out to the country that Donald Trump is a criminal, has always been a criminal, was a criminal in the White House the last time, is still a criminal in the White House, and that, Jack Smith was a good guy who was just prosecuting the crime. So, they're running at somewhat different purposes. Nina, I got to run, but thank you for the call, and appreciate it. I appreciate your listening to us there on SiriusXM. 44 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Defending America from the weapons of mass deception. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Kathy in Redding, California. Hey, Kathy, thanks for listening to KFOI. What's up?
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate the opportunity to pass this information on. I read it in our local newspaper, which is curated by USA Today, so you know it's slant. And it was a long article about the stockholders of Home Depot doing an investigation into this company Flock. And using information that Home Depot had given them and passing it on to ICE. and kind of makes you wonder why ICE has been focusing on hanging out around Home Depot. So there's employee information, there's contractors information, there's client information that is being passed on to ICE, and the stockholders are saying this is without the people's permission.
Is this because the guy who's the founder of Home Depot, John, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, is a big Trump humper?
I didn't know that, but sure makes sense.
Yeah, he's a huge fan and a donor of Donald Trump and donor to Trump and his campaigns and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, it makes me think that I won't be shopping at the Home Depot anymore.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons a lot of people are going to Lowe's instead, actually. You know, just like people are starting to go to Costco instead of other big box stores because, you know, Costco maintains, you know, high pay levels and respects unions and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, Kathy, for the call. Good talking to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Sure enough. Richard in Shreveport, Louisiana. Hey, Richard, what's on your mind today?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Appreciate you taking my call.
My pleasure. What's up?
You were talking about the theft of the election and Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know, I mean, there was never an investigation. I mean, all it was Pence and these other people telling him that he lost. They never handed over the routers to the voting machines. I mean, all we got is you people saying you lost.
Richard,
there
were exhaustive forensic analyses.
No. Who did it? Who did it?
Well, a number of them were done by independent organizations as a result of court orders. There were 60 different court cases.
Who hired those independent?
Oh, Richard. Are you really going to go down this road?
Sir, no, sir. It was not Republicans.
Yeah.
This was no, sir. You got
Charles in Vancouver. Hey, Charles, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
You know, in alphabetical order, sir, Anita Hill was right.
Yeah.
Hillary was right. Kamala Harris, very right.
Yep.
And so I refer, because I'm a musician on the side, I refer back to a jazz album about 2000, 2001, Jack DeJohnette, Herbie Hancock, Pat Metheny. It was called Parallel Realities. And I still listen to it to this day, Tom. But to me, that's the greatest description of the world that I'm living in. And, you know, I know how you feel. I appreciate your scholarly and intellectual approach to things. But, you know, intellects are not very readily accepted, you know, in our current culture. And, you know, I still refer to 1971, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Four Dead in Ohio. You know, you and I grew up with that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not sure what it is, Tom. I say we have to fight fire with fire. What do you say?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. I'm not in favor of violence, but I am certainly in favor of using the law and waking people up. I mean, that's why I'm here every day. Charles, thanks for the call. Very trenchant observations. Appreciate it. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. They called it blood libel, what the Germans were doing against the Jews, claiming that they were using the blood of Christian children to make their matzah. We've got a new blood libel now here in the United States. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump lying through their teeth, arguing that black Haitian immigrants to the United States, legal immigrants with green cards in this little town in Ohio, are eating pets. This is another libel that goes way back. In the 1890s, you know, people were claiming German and Dutch immigrants were eating pets. Then they claimed in the 1880s, and actually as recently as last year, a restaurant got shut down in California because of claims that they were serving pets. They weren't. But it was an Asian restaurant. This is just evil stuff, these lies and spreading this kind of hate. And this is now the strategy that the Republicans are using. There's a whole article about it at HartmannReport.com, Hate as a Political Weapon. Check it out. 10 10 minutes before the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Skip in Morris County, New Jersey. Hey, Skip, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Hello from the blue state of New Jersey with our beautiful new governor.
Oh, great. Yeah.
I wanted to, this was really more relevant a couple of days ago. This is more about Greenland and out of the file of the best defense is a good offense. I was thinking that Canada and NATO should do a joint exercise and stage maybe 3 divisions and a armored division in Montreal, Quebec, and Nova Scotia, and the armored division at the very top of Maine there across the Canadian border, right at the top of 95, and use Eisenhower's interstate system. And just tell Trump that if you take Greenland, we're going to take Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont.
Yeah. Well, you know, first of all, Mark Carney's not trying to antagonize Trump. He's just telling the truth about what's going on. And secondly, this was always a bluff. Donald Trump never had any intention of taking Greenland. He knew it was crazy. It was just a way of getting us, you know, it's been 2 weeks now that we haven't been talking about the Epstein files because Trump got the whole world hysterical about Greenland. And he'll come up with something else, you know, next. I'm guessing Cuba.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
I believe Lawrence is right. I think the next player up is Cuba.
Yeah, there you go. Skip, thanks for the call. John Parker is a reporter with AM 950 KTNF, our affiliate in Minneapolis. Hey, John, how are things in Minneapolis today?
Hi, Tom. Actually, there's a lot going on. I have a few updates for you to share. One, and this may seem obvious, but I think the local press and media are really wrestling right now with how to treat information from DHS, as it's becoming increasingly obvious that they're not really a valid source of information. Just this morning, the Minnesota Department of Corrections held a press conference to correct what they're calling misinformation being pushed by DHS. The agency is claiming that there are over 1,300 detainees in Minnesota custody, but DOC Commissioner Paul Schnell is saying that number is actually 301 after they conducted a comprehensive survey. The Star Tribune is reporting last night the FBI affidavits and the investigation into last week's shooting of an individual by an agent in the leg that was non-lethal. That story is wildly different than the one that DHS had been pushing about what they claim had happened.
So in other words, ICE has been repeatedly lying to us? I'm shocked.
Well, yeah. Yeah, but I think, you know, what press are trying to do here, and they're getting increasingly called out, those that are sort of reading verbatim what DHS is saying when very clearly within days they're being proved wrong. And local officials are getting pretty adamant about proving them wrong in press conferences, which
interesting.
Leads me to another update. Yeah, there was a press conference Tuesday of local police chiefs, and the Brooklyn Park Police Chief Bruley, I want to remind you of what he said. He was claiming that it was the newer ICE agents who were causing the problems here in Minnesota. He said that ICE agents who had been with the agency longer were calling him and saying, this is wrong, what's happening? And Chief Bruley said in the press conference that to his knowledge, the newer agents were not being given direct orders from on high, if you will, to act the way that they have been. But yesterday, there was a leak at DHS, and we now know that that's different, that they are being instructed in one instance here in this leak that they are being given orders, the new agents, not the older ones apparently, that they don't need judicial warrants to enter into a person's home if they believe an individual inside. Yeah. So that is something that's newer agents are getting trained on, but the older ones aren't necessarily getting as well.
Well, it actually contradicts the actual manuals that ICE has that reflect the actual Fourth Amendment, which says you can't do that without a judge signing a warrant that somebody is sworn under oath, you know, that there's a crime being committed there.
Exactly.
So that's wild.
Yesterday, the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals lifted a U.S. District Court order that prevented ICE and Border Patrol from using gas and other munitions against legal observers and protesters. And literally within hours, we had Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino himself tossing green gas canisters. And if you've seen the video, of this green gas is specifically... It's toxic, but it also obscures line of sight, so observers can't get quality video of what they're doing behind the gas, which is apparently why they're using the specific one that they've started using yesterday.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
And
they can
then
beat somebody up and nobody
tomorrow-
can film it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then tomorrow is the big action day, the ICE out of Minnesota Day of Truth and Freedom. And there's a number of actions that are happening tomorrow. At 10 a.m., there's actually going to be what they're calling action at the airport. So Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport has been allowing itself to be used for flights that apparently, organizers say 100 people a day are being flown out of that airport on deportation flights, and often it's immediate. There's a story yesterday of 4 kids who were detained at their schools, and then within hours, they were already in Texas.
Yeah.
So it's happening very, very fast through MSP, and the protesters and organizers want MSP to stop allowing their airport to be used for these deportation flights. They also said something last night in an organizing meeting about Delta Airlines, that they aren't protecting their workers while they're working, and that ICE agents are detaining them literally while they're on a shift.
Wow.
So that is, been a revealing piece of information.
John Parker with AM 950 KTNF. John, thanks so much for the report.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tom.
Great talking with you. We'll be back on the other side of the break with Alex Lawson. What's up with Social Security? Stay tuned.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
For today is Kickback, Exposing the Global Corporate Bribery Network by David Montero. This is from the introduction, Chapter 1. During Watergate, the appointment of a special prosecutor to investigate Richard Nixon's alleged tampering with elections was intended to mark the close of a sordid chapter in American history. Instead, that effort, culminating in Nixon's resignation, would prove to be only the beginning of a deeper political morass that America would face for decades to come. Congressional investigations would uncover for the first time that multinational corporations, through slush funds and bribes, were not only secretly funding political organizations at home, like Nixon's re-election campaign, but corrupting foreign officials abroad. This new perspective on the corporate abuse of power and its impact overseas would result in the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, FPCA, groundbreaking legislation that, by prohibiting commercial bribery for the first time in history, sought to change how capitalism and political affairs were conducted all around the world. Now, more than 40 years later, we are experiencing a kind of deja vu as the special counsel investigates whether the president allegedly abused his power, again by obstructing an inquiry into a possible manipulation of our country's elections. Just as was the case in Watergate, whatever special counsel Robert Mueller uncovers will likely mark the beginning, rather than the end, of a reassessment of how power actually operates in this country. And just as in Watergate, there's the possibility that Mueller's far-reaching probe may reveal how tightly political corruption and corporate corruption are linked through bribery, just under the surface of America's political life. Nixon was the recipient of secret corporate donations, which were considered illegal because they should have been disclosed. But the payments, while unlawful, did not compromise the presidential election itself. Mueller's Russian inquiry is directed at a potentially far more serious crime, whether Donald Trump, the head of a sprawling business empire, colluded with a foreign power to deliberately sway the American electorate, committing the very crime that the FCPA had been trying to eradicate since Watergate, the offer of a foreign bribe, a kickback. That law specifically states that a corporate bribe need not involve an actual exchange of money. An offer of anything of value, such as a promise to a foreign government official, is sufficient to violate its terms. This is precisely what Mueller is trying to ascertain, whether Trump, his company, his associates, or his family, or some combination of them, offered a promise to Russian government officials, a quid pro quo, that if they helped Trump by manipulating the elections, Trump, if victorious, would ease U.S. sanctions against Russia. Doing so would allow greater U.S. investment of Russia and would benefit Russian officials and oligarchs, the Trump business organization, the corporate interests of the Trump family, and former members of his senior staff, including Paul Manafort, his one-time campaign chairman, and Michael Flynn, his disgraced national security advisor. If the Trump organization or anyone connected with it did make such a promise, and depending on how that promise was conveyed to Russian officials, the Justice Department would have strong grounds for pursuing an FCPA charge, among others. An FCPA violation is within Mueller's mandate to investigate, quote, any matters that arose or may arise directly from this investigation. As has been widely observed, Mueller has hired 2 former federal law enforcement officials with extensive experience in investigating fraud, money laundering, and overseas bribery. Andrew Weissman, who ran the Justice Department's fraud section, which enforces the FCPA, and Greg Andres, who helped oversee FCPA policy in the criminal division. The drama playing out in Washington starkly highlights the fact that foreign corporate bribery can be a deeply misleading term. We have come to regard it, when we think of it at all, as something that unscrupulous companies do in distant countries, so that any impact it has must be contained overseas. If a corporation pays kickbacks to a greedy government official abroad, why should we be concerned? But in a highly interconnected world, bound together by a global market, a global financial system, and the constant migration of peoples, goods, capital, corruption rarely stays out there. Bribes eventually harm Americans, American society, American values, and American interests, both domestically and around the world, in ways that are difficult to gauge. Why do firms resort to bribery? The obvious reason is to gain an advantage over their competitors. But illicit payments also buy the illusion of growth in the short term, of increased market share and inflated firm value. It does not take into account the harm that this practice causes to companies themselves, sinking employee morale, diminished profit margins, and the possibility of hundreds of millions of dollars in fines and penalties, not to mention a reputation that will be associated with corruption and deceit. They also effectively steal the public's money, because the majority of bribery cases involve capital-intensive development and infrastructure projects such as roads, dams, defense systems, oil extraction, or mining that are publicly funded. To recoup the bribes involved in winning such contracts, companies conspire with foreign officials to inflate the costs, sometimes by 10 or even hundreds of millions of dollars. While the companies and the officials win out, taxpayers are left shouldering the burden. Corporate bribes involve a remarkable amount of money. The World Bank has estimated $1 trillion a year, although this may represent the high end. Others have placed the market at 10% of the $4 trillion spent annually on global public procurement. The book Kickback by David Montero.
We say fight back!
is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the third hour of our program. On the line with us, our buddy Alex Lawson, the president of Social Security Works, socialsecurityworks.org, strengthensocialsecurity.org, and A Law 202 over on Blue Sky, as well as at socialsecurityworks.org. Alex, welcome back to the program. DOGE, it turns out, Trump and Musk's little effort to kneecap our government, apparently stole all of my and your Social Security information and gave it to a right-wing conspiracy nut crank group illegally? I mean, how much of a felony is this?
Yeah, and Tom, you and your listeners are some of the folks who know this. I mean, we've been shouting it from the rooftop together since DOGE plugged their computers into the mainframe. But what we know now is that the least that they've done bad is illegally give all of our data to a quote-unquote advocacy organization that is looking to overturn elections. There's been reporting by Judd Legume in Popular Information, and I think it tracks. You know, we don't know exactly because the filings don't name them, but True the Vote is the crank organization that, if you remember, we talked about at the time, Antonio Gracias, who was Elon Musk's lieutenant, his DOGE guy in Social Security Administration. He went on stage in Wisconsin, remember, around the Supreme Court election, and him and Musk pointed at graphs and said, you know, tens of millions of illegal immigrants were given Social Security numbers so that they could vote. They were painting this completely false story, and we all knew it was false. And the danger, we said at the time, was that they would use all access they had, including all of our data, to try to prove this false narrative. And what that means is that at the very least, what DOGE did is took all of our data and handed it to just somebody, right? And yes, it's important. This somebody is a crank, right? A right-wing crank. And so you think that they're protecting our data? I mean, if you or I or anybody listening, Tom, shared one person's Social Security information with a third party without their consent, you're talking about one felony, and this is everybody's data. And the worst,
340 million felonies.
At least, because this is just the one that was so egregious that, think about this, Trump's DOJ had to basically say something against themselves, his fully politicized DOJ. So think about all the stuff that they're not telling us about.
Wow, this is mind-boggling, Alex. Is anybody? I mean, why aren't these guys being prosecuted?
I mean, the big reason is because Trump has politicized the DOJ, right? So, I mean, he's literally directing the DOJ to prosecute his political enemies.
Is this not a violation of any state privacy laws? I guess because it's federal information, maybe it's not?
I think where it's starting is federal, but I do think that every single person has a case to be made that their data is, you know, or theft and misuse of their data is also a state-based issue. And so I hope a bunch of attorneys generals are looking into it. But right now, I think you've got Rep. John Lawson, right, from Connecticut, our champion, our absolute unyielding champion on Social Security. He's already out today in the hearing calling for a criminal investigation because what's been done so far are just Hatch Act violations. So DOJ chose the smallest thing that they could to try to say, oh, yeah, we're doing something about this. But clearly, the reality is that dozens of federal laws have been broken by at least 2 individuals in the DOJ paperwork, who again are unnamed. So why is DOJ not naming them? Like, we need to know who has our data, who gave who our data illegally. And who has it now? What are they doing with it? We don't know if they've given it on to someone else. You can imagine that the entire Social Security database of America is worth a lot of money. And it's sitting on who knows how many unprotected servers. This is absolutely just the tip of the iceberg, Tom. And, you know, the news is reporting on it, so good. But also, we said this right at the beginning when they stole the data, you know, like, is anyone going to ask them why they need it, what they're doing with it? They're going on TV. Antonio Gracias and Elon Musk, they went on Fox News. They went on Joe Rogan. They made as much press as possible claiming all of this fraud in Social Security. Donald Trump gave a speech to the joint session of Congress and lied for 7 minutes straight about 120-year-olds. That was all part of this scheme. So it goes all the way to the top. And all that this DOJ filing on the Hatch Act violations does is it asks far more questions than it answers, right? Like, clearly a lot more went on here than they want anybody to know about. And we, the people whose data has been stolen, demand accountability. So congressional oversight, criminal investigation, everything has to be done, because this is, I would bet, will turn out to be the largest data theft in the history of America, possibly the world, when you're talking about the entire roster of the United States of America, every single one of us.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. It's truly mind-boggling. And it's also a security issue. I mean, you know, it's a personal security issue. If I can, just a couple other quick points here that I wanted to run by you, Alex. Mitt Romney is apparently calling for the cap to be slightly lifted or tweaked. You know, we know that if nothing is done, Social Security is going to be in trouble in about 5 years. But on the other hand, if billionaires and multimillionaires like Mitt Romney simply paid the same percentage of their income tax, or of their income as Social Security taxes, FICA taxes, then Social Security would be solvent for the next 75 years. And Bernie Sanders says everybody could get a $2,000 a year raise. So what's up with Mitt Romney?
This is, it depends on which way you want to look at it. A lot of politicians, right, when they have no power, right, they start saying and doing things that you're like, that would have been probably more useful when you had power. So I'm not like, oh, yeah, great job, Mitt Romney. Also, Mitt Romney is an avowed Social Security opponent. So this is primarily trying to cut us off at the pass before we can get billionaires and the ultra wealthy to pay the same rate as the rest of us. And as you said, that would allow us beyond 75-year solvency, and we expand benefits for everyone in this country. That's what we have to do. So Mitt Romney is like saying, oh, yeah, well, what if we only just did a little bit of that? And I don't think he's actually moved much from a little bit of taxes and a lot of benefit cuts. That's kind of my read of where he would be. So in many ways, just ignore Mr. Car Elevator and be like, yeah, we're gonna get all of your income taxed into Social Security. Don't you worry.
Yeah, there you go. And finally, what do we know about Trump's great health care plan? Fox News is talking about this like it's the reincarnation of Jesus or something. It's gonna put an end to the need for Medicare and Medicaid and everything else. I don't see any plan here. Am I missing something?
You are not. It's just lies. I mean, it's the opposite of some sort of revelation. There is nothing there. Their plan is no plan. They barely have a talking point that sounds pretty good, right? We're going to give you the money. But that's just not a reality, right? That's not actually how the system works. Right. So they don't have a plan. Their plan is no plan. And they want to keep the story on will they, won't they fix things that they broke? Do they have a plan? And all of that is so that we are not telling the very simple truth, which is Republicans destroyed our healthcare system. $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, right? You have ACA rates spiking. Every opportunity that they had to deal with healthcare, they did not. So to pretend that they are, oh yeah, they're just working on it. No, they're not. Hospitals are closing now. Nursing homes are closing now. People's premiums have already spiked. So they love keeping the media in this like, oh yeah, they're working on it story so that they can get around the fact that the changes that they've made will kill 56,000 new people a year, according to Yale Public Health School, right? And that's the most vulnerable people in our country, the oldest of the old, people with disabilities in nursing homes, seniors with disabilities, and all of that is so that they can give trillions of dollars in tax handouts to the richest people in the history of the world. So again, they want us to talk about them as like, oh, maybe they're only mildly the bad guys, to take our eyes off of the plain truth that what they have done, stealing our health care, destroying and working to degrade Social Security, marching armed troops into this country to violate the civil rights of millions of Americans. That's what's happening. That's what we should be talking about. That's what the Republicans are doing.
Yeah, and you know, saving Social Security has never been on their agenda. They've been fighting it ever since it was introduced in 1935. And soon, I'm concerned that we're going to see Medicare cuts as a result of the whole pay-go thing. You know, once those Medicaid cuts go into effect next year. Wild stuff. Alex Lawson, the president of Social Security Works, socialsecurityworks.org. Alex, thank you so much for dropping by.
Thanks, Tom.
It's always great talking with you. We always learn something. I truly appreciate it. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Could the Epstein scandal still take Trump down? Is Comer Fudd now openly trying to cover up what appears to be underage sex trafficking out of Mar-a-Lago?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I'll be right back with you. It's the place where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare say, no, the Republicans on the court got that one wrong, too. And welcome back. Let's see here. I'm trying to catch who is testifying right now. Let's just run this testimony for just a minute here. Can we put it up? Okay, it's going to take a minute. All right, in that case, I'm going to pick up a call here. Calvin in Grove City, Ohio. Hey, Calvin, what's on your mind today?
I had a theory that Putin, and it was like, and Nikita Khrushchev idea of a pawn was Trump. He's using Trump as a pawn, and Trump is doing exactly what Trump or Putin wants. Well, what happened is he's gone to all these different countries. Each one of those countries, Russia is involved in. They're involved in Cuba. They're involved in Venezuela. They're involved in Iran. They want Greenland to be used to pry the United States out of the NATO, and everything he's done. The Russian soldiers are in Venezuela, by the way.
Yeah, as Hillary Clinton said, you know, with Trump, all roads lead to Putin. You're absolutely right.
And what happened was, in Iran, why he said about Iran was a lie. He wasn't going to help those people.
No.
He just wanted to get them out of the streets so they can get rid of them.
I think he was just talking through his hat. He just makes stuff up.
He wanted to get the people out that was against Ayatollah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
I think that was part of his deal.
I think you're absolutely right, Calvin. Calvin, thank you for the call. Spot on. Let's just go to the hearings here and see if we can catch a minute or two of it.
Mentioned the fact that it was Republicans that you were reaching out to. And he said, because the Democrats weren't going to help us, and even some Republicans wouldn't help us. And so our evidence shows repeatedly that the plan was to see if you could prey on people's party loyalty.
Some of the gentlelady's expired. The gentlelady from...
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Smith, it was during your deposition with our committee that you revealed that you tasked your team, specifically J.P. Cooney, to engage with the partisan January 6th committee. You had to have known at the time the controversy surrounding this committee, including the fact that all of the members had been appointed by Nancy Pelosi, who disallowed the Republicans from being able to engage. Yet you proceeded anyway, raising numerous questions as to your strategy for conspiring with the J6 committee. You had every possible resource available to you. Your prosecution of President Trump was clearly a priority for the Biden administration. And it is clear that you had an unlimited budget. And you also left no stone unturned, even subpoenaing records from sitting members of the House and Senate. So what information could the J6 committee possess that you and the nation's top law enforcement agency could not obtain on your own?
I did request J.P. Cooney.
What did they have that you couldn't obtain on your own?
In any investigation,
What information did they have that you were not able to obtain on your own?
I couldn't know that until I had their information.
Was there anything there? Did you find that they had information that you were not able to obtain?
I don't recall specifically every bit of information. What I can tell you is we took in their information because we wanted to collect any...
Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. I remember my dad's Republican Party. The Republican Party around the world, for a clean environment, for honest wages, for unions, for building infrastructure, for government balanced spending, for peace in the world. This is from his 1956 campaign.
Eisenhower knows how to deal with the Russians. He has met Europe's leaders, has got them working with us. Elect the #1 man for the #1 job of our time. November 4th, vote for peace. Vote for Eisenhower. A paid bill.
Right. Vote for peace. And now the Republicans are the party of, military boondoggles and corruption and hate and anti-union and everything, the opposite of everything Eisenhower stood for. Will the Republican Party survive this? What are they going to come back as? There's a whole op-ed about this titled Goodbye Liz Cheney over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
They worked their lives, they paid their dues. Now billionaires are spreading news that Social Security's gotta go. But we see through that dog and pony show. Behind closed doors, the votes are cast by men who serve the ultra class. They won't face us in the light of day, but we're here and we've got something to say. Hands off our Social Security. This belongs to you and me. We paid in, we earned that right.
Hello?
Hello? Bill, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Tom. Afternoon, Tom. Hope all is well. I couldn't hear you there for a second.
All
Sorry
good,
about
Bill.
that.
What's on your mind?
Well, I got a couple things here quick. Firstly, I'm one of the ones who was fortunate not to be on Medicare C. I've told you that before. People don't have to buy into Medicare C. And second, I love Jack Smith going on now. And what I found fascinating is he's always taking notes, right? So it doesn't bother me, but I love people who take notes all the time. And when they're asking questions, the Republicans, I think it really gets under their skin,
Yeah.
Just, But I just want to touch. No, it's funny. He's always taking note. They jump on him, but it's just one of those things. You have to quirks. I always see, and he's left-handed as well. Always left-handed. I'm ambidextrous. Mm-hmm. It fascinates me.
Interesting.
But anyway, I want to talk about NASA quick. Next Wednesday is the 40th anniversary of Challenger. Tuesday is Apollo 1, which was 59 years ago, and February 3rd will be 22 years since Columbia. And I bring all this up. I brought it up to you last week because it's the tragedies of NASA at this time of year. Mm-hmm. And jumping to
several of which
today,
seem to have tied into the cold, the old O-rings thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, that and the wing on Columbia, the wing, the piece of foam there. Yeah. But what concerns me today is they want to launch Artemis to begin, or at least try to launch Artemis 2 February 5th, and then they want to launch Crew 12 back to the International Space Station because they had to bring the Crew 11 back because of the sick astronaut. And that's going to be, a few days later. So it concerns me that the pattern NASA has, they're not following history. That's my, where I'm going with it. You see where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I get it. And and like I said, the cold weather has been problematic for NASA in the past. So we'll see. Bill, thanks for the call. We'll be right back. 27 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with you on the other side.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Picking up your calls here. We'll be right back with more of your calls and notes from the Jack Smith hearings on the other side of this.
Police officers and hang Mike Pence and try to break into the floor of the House and wiping feces on the walls. It was all this guy, Ray Epps, right? So who is Ray Epps? Why is he so powerful? So, I just did a quick, Google search of Ray Epps, and his Wikipedia page says the powerful Ray Epps is a wedding planner to the Oath Keepers. This is the wedding planner? That's the mastermind of January. You went from Donald Trump. It wasn't Donald. Who are we going to blame? Who could it be? How about the wedding planner to the Oath Keepers? It's just pathetic. But, my colleagues love the past, Mr. Smith. Love the past. That's why you're here before Pam Bondi. Okay? We haven't had the Attorney General here. We didn't have her last year. She's the only one in the cabinet to not come in committee of reference. But they love the past. Oh, they love talking about January 6th and Hunter Biden and COVID and Barack Obama and Hillary's emails. They love the past. These people love the past so much they're still reenacting the Civil War. Okay? Love the past. Right now. But they hate talking about the present. But you know what? Let's talk about the past real quick. Here are some quotes, because I heard one of my colleagues call you a hypocrite. Here are some quotes from my colleagues. Chairman Jordan, right after January 6th, stop the violence, support Capitol Police. Ted Cruz, those storming the Capitol need to stop right now. The Constitution protects but not violence. Chip Roy, today the People's House was attacked, which is an attack on the Republic itself. Steve Scalise, United States Capitol Police saved my life. Lindsey Graham, when it comes to accountability, the president needs to understand his actions were the problem. Troy Nels, oh my God, him again. I'm happy to stand shoulder to shoulder with Capitol Police. Darrell Issa, the violence and turmoil we witnessed in Washington, D.C. was completely unacceptable. Rep. McClintock, the attack on Capitol strikes the most sacred act of our democracy. And former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, whose name we heard a lot today, what did he have to say about it? Let me be clear, last week's violence attack on the Capitol was undemocratic, un-American, and criminal. And make no mistake, those who were responsible should be brought to justice. The president bears responsibility. Period. Or exclamation point. But let's talk also about, the present. That's the past. Let's talk about the present. These are the guys who created the weaponization committee for the DOJ. So let's talk about the present. Jerome Powell facing investigation. Okay? In fact, we heard about Jonathan Turley, that he's some legal messiah. Jonathan Turley calls the Jerome Powell thing legitimate concerns of retaliation. Lisa Cook under investigation. Mark Kelly, United States Senator, under investigation. Adam Schiff, United States Senator, under investigation. Eric Swalwell, United States Representative, under investigation. Chris Christie, potentially under investigation. Jack Smith, oh, that's you, under investigation. Okay, Miles Taylor, former Chief of Staff to United States Department of Homeland Security, under investigation. Christopher Krebs, former Director of Cybersecurity, under investigation. Indicted. James Comey, Letitia James. John Bolton. It's weird that they indicted John Bolton but stole his foreign policy. Accused of crimes. Former President Joe Biden. Former President Barack Obama. Revoked or threatened with revocation of Secret Service protection. Kamala Harris. Hunter Biden. Ashley Biden, the daughter of President Joe Biden. Mayorkas, Mike Pompeo, Brian Hook, General Mark Milley, John Bolton, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the guy Trump gave a medal to. Security clearance revoked. Joe Biden, Anthony Blinken, Jacob Sullivan, Lisa Monaco, Mark Zaid, Norman Eisen, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Andrew Weissman, Hillary Clinton, Liz Cheney, Kamala Harris, Adam Kinzinger, Fiona Hill, Alexander Vindman. Miles Taylor, I could keep going. Any questions about any of that? We know you don't.
But will the gentleman yield for a question?
I will, please.
Because you have a way of synthesizing that nobody else does, Mr. Moskowitz. Listening to our colleagues today, I wonder if they actually believe any of this would have happened had Donald Trump simply accepted the results of the election.
You mean like Al Gore did when he lost 5-4 at the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would any of this, would the violence have happened? Would the fake counterfeit slates have happened? The threats against Vice President Pence?
No, none of it would have happened. And Leanne Panetta would still have a security clearance. So would John Brennan. So would Michael Morrell, Michael Vickers. I can't get them all in, Mr. Chairman. I can't get them. I have like 4 more pages of the weaponization of the Department.
The time of the gentleman from Florida has expired. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, when was the initial indictment issued on President Trump? August 1st, 2023. Does that sound about right?
That's in the election case. That's correct.
Correct. And on that election case, after that, you asked for a trial date. When?
I don't recall as I sit here right now.
January 2024. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Okay. So after the indictment, you in August, you asked for a January trial date. That's like 5 months. 5 months. How much evidence did you have? Millions of pages?
As I sit here right now, I don't recall the exact.
I think in your testimony they talked about a number, 13 million pages. Is that a ballpark accurate number?
I think that was the question asked of me, and as I sit here, I don't have an accurate number.
So let's just assume that that's true, right? Because you had a bunch of stuff. You had $50 million that you blew through the Treasury on a trial that went nowhere. How many pages per day is that? 100,000? Does that sound about right? What if we break that down per hour? It's 4,166 per minute is 70 pages. You like to read, sir? You like to read?
I do.
Do you read 70 pages a minute?
I do not.
I mean, that would be remarkable. So how do you prepare for a trial in 5 months if you're asking the defense counsel to read 70 pages a minute? How do you do that and prepare a defense and look at all the witness testimony and video evidence that you supposedly had? How do you do that? You know what's shocking to me, and I think that one of the most egregious aspects of this case, Mr. Smith, is that if you get a traffic ticket in Washington, D.C., you're not going to trial in 5 months. But you want the former president of the United States, to have a trial date with 13 million pages of documents within 5 months. I think that's ridiculous. And I think that speaks exactly to what we talk about when we examine not only your record, but the things in this case that are deeply troubling. That this was not the pursuit of facts and law and letting the judge and the jury decide. That this was an exercise in it was a political hit shop, timed perfectly against the President of the United States. Sir, in the Florida case, in the records case, what happened ultimately in that case?
There's a knock on the door in the dead of night. No war in red, just a badge and a light. They say it's nothing, just routine, just words you spoke, just what they've seen. I held my breath, I held my ground, they held my phone, they wrote me down. No chains, no cell, no courtroom scene, just fear dressed up as security. It starts with silence, not a gun, with lists and lies and everyone. A country told to bend and comply by men who fear the reason why. They call it order, call it law, but freedom looks like a threat to them all.
36 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So over at the House Oversight Committee, you know, the big hearing with Jack Smith right now is in front of Judiciary, I believe, but Oversight is the one. The chairman faced accusations that he was hiding Mar-a-Lago massage records for Donald Trump after he shut down an attempt to subpoena them during a hearing on Jeffrey Epstein. So this is Maxwell Frost got up, the young congressman from Florida, the Democrat from Florida, and he said the wealth and power cannot shield people from accountability from this committee. He went on to say it's the victims of these horrific crimes who deserve protection, not Jeffrey Epstein and the people associated with him. Committee Republicans have failed to conduct a serious investigation. For instance, they refused to hold Attorney General Pam Bondi in contempt for failure to release 99% of the Epstein files on a bipartisan law that we all passed on the House floor. He said, we all know that Donald Trump has a long-standing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. His administration continues to obstruct the release of the Epstein files for this reason. He said, we know that Epstein was deeply involved with Mar-a-Lago. He was a frequent visitor to the club for years. The club sent employees, usually young women, to Epstein's mansion for massages, manicures, and other spa services. Staff members from the club made frequent calls to Epstein's home in Palm Beach. And on these calls, Epstein himself engaged in sexually suggestive behavior, such as exposing himself. So Maxwell Frost says, we need to get the documents. Getting the documents from Mar-a-Lago is about uncovering evidence, holding these people accountable, and doing right by the victims of these horrific crimes. So here's the opportunity to show it's not a politically motivated thing. Let's just make sure we get these documents from Mar-a-Lago. I move the House shall subpoena the Mar-a-Lago Club and all entities under common ownership. And Comer Fudd, you know, Jim Comer, the chairman of the committee, the Republican, he says, the motion is improper as the item is not on the agenda. So Frost says, so, Mr. Chair, you want to use procedure to push back accountability? You're saying it's because it's not on the agenda that we can't move forward on this? He says, you have full discretion of this committee to say, you know what, let's have a vote on a bipartisan way to say we want the documents from Mar-a-Lago. You're able to say that right now. We can vote on this. You're hiding behind a process to protect these Mar-a-Lago documents, and I think it's a disgrace. Comer was, shall we say, not happy. Stephen in Yorba Linda, California. Hey, Stephen, what's on your mind today?
Hello, yeah, thank you for letting me on. I just wanted to remind folks that Donald Trump has taken money from Vladimir Putin's buddies, the mega billionaires, etc., in part to help him pay for some of his apartment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, both of his sons have said the only reason he's still afloat is because of Russian money.
Yeah, there you go. So it's hard to know. I wonder if he's gotten $1 billion here or $500 million there in his back pocket that nobody has actually paid attention to, because he's made trips to Russia a couple of times, right?
Yeah. No, he started. I mean, Craig Unger tells this story. He really did the definitive biography. Trump went over to Russia in 1987 when it was the Soviet Union with his wife Ivana, whose father was a KGB informant. And they were taken under the wing of the KGB through Intourist, which was the official tourist agency. Louise and I visited Moscow around that time too, And you know, we knew we were being spied on. I mean, it's like, you know, your tour guide is a KGB officer. It's just that's the way it is. And but Trump came back to the United States after that meeting and made a speech up in New Hampshire that he was thinking of running for president. This was '87. And then bought a full-page ad in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and I believe the LA Times. I could be wrong. It might have been the Washington Post, but it had 3 major newspapers. And the ad called for the United States to pull out of NATO. In other words, you know, please do exactly what the KGB just, you know, suggested to you. And he's been holding that position pretty much ever since. I mean, I think the consensus from the Craig Unger crowd is that Donald Trump has been a Russian asset since the 80s. And it makes sense to me. I mean, it's certainly, you know, everything comports with that. If you
that's pretty sad and pretty disgusting in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you went through that history because there may be people out there that aren't aware of that.
I think you're right. I think that, you know, but certainly anybody watching Fox News isn't aware of that. So, yeah, excellent point. Thank you, Stephen.
Okay,
thanks for the call. Good talking to you. Wayne in Kansas or wherever you're driving. Hey, Wayne, one of our XM truckers.
I'm actually in Texas now. Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah.
My question. Okay, let me phrase this way, sir. How do you feel about democratic socialists in a nutshell?
About the party or about the philosophy?
No, about that way of governance compared to just straight being a Republican, straight being a Democrat.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
You know, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, frankly, to a large extent, since the Civil War, have both endorsed and embraced socialism in varying degrees. You know, Abraham Lincoln gave millions and millions of acres to some 60 locations around the country in I think 40 some odd states to build land-grant universities. That's why my mother was able to go to MSU for almost nothing, because Lincoln gave that land to MSU and said, use the land to make the money to pay the people's tuition. That's socialism. That was a Republican president in the 1860s. Social Security is socialism. Medicare is socialism. Food stamps are socialism. Your ability to deduct the cost of raising your children, your childhood tax deductions, that's socialism. So, you know, we've got a lot of socialism in the United States. Nowhere near as much as I would like to have, frankly, but, you know, a fair amount. Right. And, you know, if Democrats want to call themselves democratic socialists, that's fine with me. I would probably characterize myself that way, but I realize that the Republicans, you know, hate that word socialist because it was adopted by the communists in Russia. And so it can be very confusing. I'm not sure where you're going with this, Wayne.
Okay, well, this is where I'm going. We have this as a reference, but yet we know that even some Democrats on the Democratic side are screaming at the top of their lungs, we don't want socialists. We saw that with those who refused to back up Mondani, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did we not see that? Now, all these people, both sides of the aisle, screaming that they don't want socialism, they don't want a democratic socialist taking power in any part of government and all this, but yet at the same time, these are the same people that we have all these contracts that made the richest man in the world got him where he is, because he's not an inventor. He's not if anything, he's more of an investor, and he could be technically called an innovator, but only because his money that he got from us taxpayers got him there, because he was raised off of a mine in South Africa, correct?
To the best of my knowledge, yeah, an emerald mine. But I'm no expert on Elon Musk. But.
Right. But I mean, I've done a little bit of study in here, and everything I've found has shown me that that the greatest recipients of socialist monies has been our farmers, has been our oil bankers, and the richest people in the world literally are who have received the most money from the taxpayer. And yet still here we are. We can't get free health care, can we? But the Republicans that are throwing all the money to Israel have no problem with the Israelis being able to get a free abortion.
or free health care for that matter. I mean, yeah, we're paying for that.
Exactly.
We're paying for the health care of all the people in Israel. But I get that. I mean, let's not just
of their GDP that we pay for.
I don't know what the percentage is, and I'm uncomfortable just picking on Israel. I mean, this is a larger problem.
But yes.
But I think that your larger point here, Wayne, that we've got a bunch of socialism loving. I mean, for example, when George W. Bush pushed through the Bankruptcy Reform Act in 2005 that made it illegal for banks to forgive loans through bankruptcy if the loans were for student loans. That was nothing more than a subsidy to the banks. Now, every bank in America that wants to do student loans has a 100% guarantee they're going to be paid back, or they're going to be able to just, seize people's homes and garnish their wages forever and punish them severely. So, these are the kinds of, and then you've got, we subsidize the fossil fuel industry to the tune of a couple $100 billion a year here in the United States. I mean, this is all arguably socialism too. So, yeah. No, I think there's just a mind-boggling amount of hypocrisy going on.
That's the statement I want to make. I thank you very much, sir, and you have a blessed and wonderful day.
Well, thank you, Wayne. You too. It's always nice hearing from you. It's 46 minutes, almost 47 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls and more of the news of the day in just a minute. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be right back. Stay with us, please. Jack Smith hearings, and I'll pick up your calls in just a couple minutes here. Stay with this. Here's the Jack Smith hearings.
They were willing to give us. As I sit here now, I don't recall if specifically her information was in there, but I'm not denying that it was. It may well have been.
Okay. We'll go back. Your team issued subpoenas to various financial institutions, telecommunications providers, and conservative entities requesting communications between them and President Trump's campaign, right?
We did issue subpoenas for various sorts of information, correct.
Okay. And the bank records, you would say, or we could describe, were fairly broad, the request?
We issued subpoenas for certain bank records as part of our investigation, yes.
Okay. Shortly after you're appointed, you issued subpoenas to state and local officials for their communications with President Trump. Is that correct? And his campaign.
As I sit here now, I'm trying to recall specifically which officials, but I know we issued a number of subpoenas in our investigation to understand the communications between President Trump and various entities, including state officials.
One final question.
One quick final question.
Yeah. Do you really believe that President Trump thinks he lost that election?
Yes. Our investigation following the facts and the law determined that...
No way. Thank you. That's enough.
I have a unanimous consent request. Gentleman from New York is recognized for unanimous consent.
Actually, I have two. One is to an article entitled, "With AG Bondi next to him, Trump says deranged Jack Smith must be investigated." And the other is a tweet from Marco Rubio. "There is nothing patriotic about what is occurring on Capitol Hill. This is third world style anti-American anarchy."
Without objection. Gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Can I get an extra 33 seconds?
You get your full 5 minutes.
Well, okay, fine. It's curious because you've sat here all day, and thank you so much for showing up, because this was something that you wanted to do. The Republicans wanted to make sure that you were hid in a room with no cameras, because I was there. They didn't really want you out public because they were afraid of what you would say, which is that you could have proven your case because you are a career prosecutor who knows how to prosecute criminals. So just to be clear, Today, it seems like the Republicans have not really fought very much about whether or not Trump was guilty or not. In fact, their fight seems to be over whether or not you were authorized to prove their guilt. Do you recall a number of Republican members asking about whether or not your appointment was okay, even though we know that you've testified about the more than 100-year precedent that allowed for your appointment?
I was asked questions about that today, and our position, as we filed in our appeal, is that there was strong support for my appointment, including Supreme Court precedent directly on point.
Thank you so much. Additionally, you know, everybody's been all gingerly here today, but I don't know why we're acting surprised that a man who had close to 90 allegations out of 4 different jurisdictions and ultimately ended up with 34 convictions after a jury was able to hear all the evidence would possibly be committing a criminal act on January 6th. In fact, considering the fact that we are now under the impression that he is violating people's due process rights, he is ignoring court orders, he's starting wars without congressional authority in contradiction to the Constitution. He's enriching himself to the tune of over $1.4 billion. He's shaking down electeds to draw maps that will help him stay in power because the Republicans don't understand that they swore an oath to the Constitution and that we are supposed to do checks and balances. He's also shaking down TV stations to get money. So why are we trying to pretend as if it is out of the realm for this particular man to commit the crime that he committed on January 6th, and frankly, the only reason he ran for president was to make sure that he would not be prosecuted, because I fully believe that you would have put him under the jail based on our long-form conversation that we had. But according to your special counsel report on page 137, it states the department's view that the Constitution prohibits the continued indictment and prosecution of a president is categorical and does not turn on the gravity of the crimes charged, the strength of the government's proof, or the merits of the prosecution, and that, quote, but for Mr. Trump's election and imminent return to the presidency, the office assessed that the admissible evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial. In other words, Donald Trump ran for president, like I said, so he wouldn't have to spend the rest of his life in prison. The chairman and other members of this committee have spent all day attacking you and trying to rewrite the history of January 6th. But Mr. Jim Jordan, the chairman, failed to mention how he was running around the Capitol terrified by the possibility that all those insurrectionists would harm him. In fact, on page 97 of the deposition transcript, you mentioned how Mark Meadows,
Say the law don't bind me, not today. Just my own mind shows me the way.
Welcome back, 53 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls. Here's Sean in Jackson, Michigan. Hey, Sean, what's on your mind today?
Hey, man, first I got to give a shout out to Jasmine Crockett. She is fire.
She is kicking ass.
Dude, so there is a through line between Jeffrey Epstein and this committee now, and I don't know if you're familiar with Sasha Riley and his story that's come out on Substack. I know there's some verification trying to go on about the details that he's come out with, but he accuses Andy Biggs and Jim Jordan of being in on these parties where they physically assaulted him personally when he was like 7 years old. So no wonder Jim Jordan is trying to hide evidence to come out and slow walk evidence and be up there cheerleading for Trump, and Andy Biggs too. And I hope someone like Jasmine Crockett brings up Sasha Riley and his accusations against those two, because, oh my gosh, dude, like, I don't even know what to say about it any more than that. They just
yeah, this, it's one of those. It's one of the ones that has. That is at the moment lacking any empirical evidence to verify it, but it's a pretty wild and lurid accusation. I'm not saying it is or isn't, solid.
That's why I said I don't know if it's true or not. I know there's some people trying to verify the details of his story.
Yeah.
But with the accusations against Jim Jordan from previously, I wouldn't put it past him to have committed other nefarious acts.
With the GOP, anything's possible. Sean, thank you. Thank you very
right
well
on,
said.
dude.
Thank you.
All right, man.
Yep. Margie in Palatine, Illinois. Hey, Margie, what's up?
Hey, Tom, thanks for taking my call. I heard something on the Hal Sparks show a couple of weeks ago. He's on WCPT from 11 to 1 on Saturdays, and my husband and I listen every week. And he was talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and he says that Jeffrey Epstein also had a place in New Mexico called the Zorro Ranch where he had
true.
girls, too.
Yep, that's true.
I've never heard that before except on Hal Sparks. And he was saying something about a 12 or 14-year-old girl gave birth, I guess, to one of the pedophiles' babies, I would imagine. And that, now this sounds far-fetched, so I don't know if it's true, but Hal Sparks said it. So, and that the infant was dumped over Lake Michigan and over and into Lake Michigan.
Yeah, I saw that report. That was about a week or two ago that story came out. Again, this is one of these no corroboration. We don't have any evidence.
Yeah.
But it's just some
thought
of
it
these
was
wild
interesting.
stories.
I know, it's just horrible. And something about Ghislaine Maxwell having a pilot's license and Trump having a property on the Virgin Islands that he's never been to, allegedly.
I don't know about either of those things.
Yeah. I just wanted to put that out there because I haven't heard that anywhere but on Hal Sparks. So.
Yeah. Well, Hal's a good guy, and he's to the best of my knowledge, he doesn't just pull stuff out of thin air. So.
It's just such a horrible situation. I think about it all the time. So it's just, I hope it would come to, culmination here and we could do something about it. But I highly doubt we'll ever see anything about it.
I'm with you. Margie, thanks for the call. Thank you for listening to WCPT. And thank you for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us, and that includes you. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the folks around you. Stay safe. Get some exercise, right? Just walking a mile a day will dramatically lengthen your lifespan and the quality of your life. Tag, you're it. We'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.